call the meeting to order, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Here.
Alderman Bushy?
Here.
Alderman Meyer?
Here.
Alderman Hansher?
Here.
Alderman Garrow?
Here.
Alderman Parrish?
Here.
Alderman Schneider? Here. Mayor Nervin?
Here. First on the agenda is a public hearing for Ordinance 2022-1620, an ordinance amending Chapter 58 of the Mequon Municipal Code to rezone an 86-acre parcel on the west side of Swan Road from R1 to R3 with central growth area overlay, and amend the city's land use plan from rural residential 1 acre in connection with a 83-lot subdivision. This was recommended by the Planning Commission on March 21st and first reading at Common Council on April 12th. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
Move to go into public hearing.
Motion and a second. All in favor of entering public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
We are in public hearing. We have, I believe, 4 people who want to speak on this item, so we'll call you up one at a time. Try and limit comments to 5 minutes. As it's a public hearing, we will listen, and then once that's all over with, we will respond either through staff comments or comments from the applicant, and then we'll have some discussion after that's all done. So first up, Patrick Humpla from 10144 North Concord Drive. He opposes and wishes to speak. Please go ahead.
My apologies to Mr. Heschner for repeating what I sent him earlier, but I'd like the Common Council to hear it. I've been a resident of Huntington Park for 3 years and live directly behind the land where the proposed Swan Ridge subdivision would be located. When we purchased our home in early 2019, I was under the impression we were moving to an area which would remain rural and had growth limited to a central corridor. While I understand that property owners have the right to sell their land, I do not think a subdivision with 84 to 88 homes is the best interest of the area. In other places I've lived, I've watched as developers have, under the guise of sustainability, consumed more land, disconnecting people from their natural habitat. I thought Mequon was going to be a place where I could raise my kids away from the traditional suburban sprawl, where they could still feel connected to nature and their community without having to get in a car or plan to go on camping trips, where they wouldn't have to worry about being hit by distracted speeding drivers who were too concerned with their phones or getting home on time. I thought my kids would have a legacy where stargazing without interference from artificial light would entertain their imagination, where they could see animals thrive in their natural habitat while playing in their backyard. It is disconcerting that the Developer and Planning Commission seem to brush aside each of these concerns without much deliberation, even though I know they go through quite a rigorous process. As a resident of Huntington Park in Mequon, I do oppose the development. However, if the Common Council chooses to move forward, I would like the following items addressed to our community. Reduction in the number of lots, interference from natural lights, including street lights, walking paths and bike trails that connect us to other communities in the area, proper traffic controls and signage in our Huntington Park, ingress and egress from our neighborhood, fences around the retention ponds, which I didn't see in the plan, but I may have overlooked. Green spaces and maintenance of natural spaces, and connections to the nature preserve, allowing people and animals to safely avoid traffic. That is all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next card is from Vicki Oberdorf. She opposes but does not wish to speak. Next is Kyle Oberdorf, 10022 North Concord Drive, opposes and wishes to speak.
Good evening, and thank you very much for letting us be here tonight and speak about the proposed subdivision that's going to be hopefully not happening behind us. I've been a resident here at Huntington Park for the past 28 years. I heard about this a few months back that this is going to happen. I figured someday it may happen, and I guess it's going to be that point where it may. I'm hoping it's not. And some reasons why I'm going to give you tonight. Part of that is that this will be the 7th subdivision from our subdivision that is going to be built or proposed to be built, which is just crazy. Our green space, I know, Mayor, you're all for the green space, right? That everybody likes Mequon because we came here because we're in a rural area. You know, little by little, our rural area is going bye-bye. It is. It's going away. The subdivision that's proposed behind us here is something where someone's got land, they're going to do something with it to sell it, yes, but there's always got to be a subdivision. But this will be the 7th one that's going in. I have problems with that, as my family does also, but I have other questions and concerns also with that subdivision. In the subdivision too, they talked about putting some roads in. One would be on Fox Kirk and one on Huntington Drive. One on Fox Kirk is no more than 100 feet from my house. So if that does happen, it's going to be stop and start traffic all day long. We're going to get cement trucks, dump trucks, trade trucks, everything that's going to be going through the subdivision in the next years to come. This is not just like we're going to put the subdivision and it's going to be done and the trucks stop. We're going to get all the debris, we're going to get the mud, we're going to get the stones, we're going to get all that through that subdivision coming through ours. So what I'm here tonight is if these 2 streets are proposed or looking to be done, what I'm looking to ask is please to hear if we can somehow put maybe bike paths in or walking paths in. That would be terrific, because you have a couple subdivisions that's not far from us, one being Brighton Ridge. Brighton Ridge, connecting to Knightsbridge, does not have a road going through there. There's one bike path, one road, one bike path going through a walking path. The enclave that was just built, just got done, there's no connection there either. There's no connection to any other subdivision. So why us? Why do we need 2 when they have none? There's a walking path, I believe, that runs north and south on the enclave. I just went through there the other day. There is no connection to this. So if it's a fire department thing or if it's a snowplow thing or whatever the case may be, these were subdivisions that were just built that did not have that connection at all. So here we are now in front of this, is that this is so close to the house. And I'm worried about the safety. I'm worried about the safety of the kids in the subdivision. I mean, they're going to be contesting with trucks and cars, and I mean, this is going to go on for a while. So that it's going to be coming through back and forth all the time. And it's the noise pollution too. I mean, it's going to be noisy. It's not only the subdivision we're going to hear all the hammering that we're going to be hearing, because I'm right behind it. So I'm on Concord Drive. My backyard backs up to the subdivision, the proposed subdivision. And it's going to be loud, and it's not going to be fun. Summer, winter, fall, it's going to be all the way around that we're going to hear the noise. But I'm worried about more of the safety on this corner on Foxkirk and then also coming down on Huntington, that it's got to be 2 roads. I'm hoping no roads at all, that we can make that just a path. But looking at these other subdivisions again, too, they don't all have roads going into those subdivisions. One, again, has a path, and that's what I'm asking for. We can see the council to look into doing that. And some streets, just as gentleman before, also with the traffic, but also the lights, too. I'm hoping that there'll be no lights, because it's so nice in our subdivision now where it is dark and quiet. And I'm also worried about the wildlife that we have. I like looking at my backyard. I still see all the deer and the geese and stuff like that. Like, where are they going to go? That's gone now, too. So I'm just concerned. I'm very, very concerned. I just hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, it does. But anything, the safety under these 2 roads is another point that I'm really looking to see that you can look in tonight and take it to heart, that it's not only a noise thing too, but it's a safety thing for the people going through that subdivision, contending with the trucks and the cars and the traffic. And us as our subdivision leaving, I guess some people are saying it may be a shortcut to going through to hit Swan. It's no different, guys and gals. It's no different. We can leave. We have no problem with entrances and exits in our subdivision now. We've had them for 40 plus years. We don't need any more. We're happy with 3. That's all I have tonight. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Oberdorf. Next is James Josie from 10014 North Concord Drive. He opposes and wishes to speak.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak. I happen to live next to Kyle. I've been in the subdivision for 39 years, with the longest resident in phase 2. We moved to this subdivision back in the early 80s. We looked at other places in Mequon. We wanted the rural atmosphere, no curb and gutter, no street lights, no sidewalks. My concern, though, has to do with connections. I'll be honest with you, in our whole 39 years living there, I expected a subdivision behind us. And I think when we moved in, it was 1 acre lots. It got flipped to 5 acre lots when the sewer wars were going on. So that part I'm not even going to talk about. I don't have an issue with that. The two connections, though, are my concern. The one, let's see if it's not going to show up, I guess, with your lights. Yeah. This one's worked at all national conferences.
Straight out the top of there.
Okay. The Foxkirk one right up here, I live right on that corner. Kyle's next to me. The other one is down here on Huntington. The Foxkirk one, when we moved in, there was about 3/4 of a block road next to us, a dead end. In 2011, when Concord Drive was repaved, Tim Weicker, I think I'm pronouncing that, from the engineering department, came to us, asked about removing that side road because it was part of the repaving. I explained to him, because of the road coming from Foxkirk, when you're coming south on Concord Drive, it's a blind spot until you're almost within 100 feet of it because you're coming up a hill. I said we tended the houses on that corner to use that side road to park friends when we had to get together, especially in summer. It was a safety issue. I asked him to actually take that drive. He did it. I was surprised because it wasn't even an hour, and he got back to me and he said, I see what you mean. I agree with you. Then he asked if we could shorten up that side road to save Mequon money. I said, I have no problem. Can we at least keep room for 6 cars? That's what we ended up with. So that road right now is 2/3 shorter than it was when we moved in. So that was the concern I had back when that road was put in. We moved there in 83. I think it was about 87 or 88. It was obvious to me that was going to be a danger point. That'll become a 4-way stop sign if you do the connection with Foxkirk. And that's going to be a concern to me. If you think about the noise at that, when trucks and school buses have to stop, the brakes aren't the issue on most of them. On the dump trucks or the garbage trucks, it is. The acceleration, whether it's a school bus or a commercial truck, the acceleration. We have 6 school buses a day go through that intersection, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. There's 172 school days. I got that information from the superintendent's office. So that's 1,032 school buses a year stopping at that intersection becomes a 4-way. We have at least 6 commercial vehicles every day. UPS, FedEx, garbage trucks, Amazon, and others. See, there's 260 work weekdays in a year. So that's 1,560 trucks and buses, or trucks. That total is 2,592 school buses and commercial trucks. Think about at your house, if all of a sudden you had that many vehicles stopping ahead of your house and accelerating. You'd be annoyed by that. That's our concern here. Now, I didn't take into account any weekend deliveries, and there are definitely a lot of them now with the delivery service online shopping. I didn't take in the extra buses for the kindergarten drop-off and pick-up in the middle of the day. We do have a bus now and then for university school, Ozaki services, and that number is going to keep increasing. So please think about that when you got that noise level we're going to have to deal with. Now I'd like to address the comments from the Planning Commission from a month and a half ago. Unfortunately, they made their comments after we presented. We weren't allowed to ask them any questions. We weren't allowed to debate them. So I have no basis for their comments. I instead decided I'm going to do this from an analytical point. So I took this map. I used the dividers, which is a navigational tool from my mariner industry background. I did driving. I drove all the routes. So I used my odometer, my digital speedometer, a stopwatch, to get these numbers that I'll be giving you. First thing is, I'll start with the one at Concord and Foxkirk there. We have 2 main traffic patterns going out of our subdivision. One of them will come out and go down to Huntington and out county line to go to Menominee Falls, Germantown, where the majority of the shopping is for us. The metro market's a mile and a half closer going that way. We have the Target, Walmart, Costco, Fleet Farm, Menards, Home Depot, all those stores, only the grocery stores you can go the other way for. So a lot of people from Swan Ridge are going to find that out. To go the other way, which would mean coming through here and going to the corner of Swan and Donges Bay, which is our other major traffic pattern, that's related to the schools, the shopping in Mequon, the boutique stores, all the restaurants. So those are our two main directions. So the people from Swan Ridge that would come through, and it's going to be mainly this group up here, that would come through next to our house, they can save maybe about a mile, a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile. However, if they go out, I don't want to get you in the eyes here, they go out the Swan Road down and
Mr.
around.
Josie, 5 minutes is up, but take another minute and wrap up your thoughts so we can move on.
Please let me finish addressing the planning council since they won't let us talk back past them.
We have 3 others to get through, and I informed everyone of the 5-minute.
It comes down to all these different routes. The time, whether they go through us or we go through them, are seconds. There's no need for any of those connections. The people that bought their homes, 252 homes at Huntington Park, as Kyle already mentioned, we knew what we were getting for exits and entrances. For the people buying in Swan Ridge Farms, they're going to be able to see those. They're going to make their decision knowing there's the ones on Swan Road. There's no reason for those connections. They also talked about snow removal, the Planning Commission. Obviously, they don't know the snow removal paths through our subdivision. For 39 years, I've been out blowing snow for a couple hours every morning because I do several driveways. The paths come through from the north end. They do the west side of ours, which is not on here. Then they come down Concord, do Huntington, come back up Concord, and they come out on Swan. If they've got to do the cross at Foxkirk or at Huntington, they're going to turn around. They're not going to go through, do half our subdivision, then go do another subdivision and come back. I haven't driven a snowplow since the 1960s, and they weren't this size. But backing up and turning around are dangerous points. So I don't see how that works for the snowplows. My last comment will be, even though I can't get to the things I'd like to, unrelated to this is the curb and gutter in Swan Ridge Farms. The pollution that creates is something you need to think about. All the road salt that gets dumped on those roads, when the spring rains come, it's right into the sewer system and into Lake Michigan. I happen to serve in a water council for Lake Winnebago system. Road salt and fertilizer runoff are two of the biggest challenges we got. I know the new subdivisions north of us have the curb and gutter. Yeah, it looks nice. That is a big pollution. You've got to stop putting curb and gutter in these farm field subdivisions. Curb and gutter has a place when it's water runoff and safety. There's no way in this subdivision there's anything to do with safety with water runoff. I'd like to go longer, but I will respect the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Josie. Next up is Tim and Lynn Buskowitz. Sorry if I messed that up. 10036 North Concord Drive. They oppose and do not wish to speak. Next we have Bruce Barnes, 9615 West Huntington Drive. He supports and wishes to speak.
Good evening, and yes, I support the proposed development. My wife and I have lived at 9615 West Huntington Drive for 30 years now, and simply anticipated there would be a development, a residential development in that area, akin to what's shown there with the local street connections. So without getting into details and so forth, just wanted to indicate consent with the proposed plan. One thing that I did want to point out is, and this is where I'm coming as my professional background being in traffic engineering, I'd heard, I have no objections with the local street connections and so forth, but I had heard proposed ideas of adding stop signs along the connections say at Huntington and Concord. Sounds like a neat idea, but in my professional experience, I think that it would be inappropriate for putting stop signs there, in that I would be very concerned about residents abiding by the stop signs over time. It's very easy flow. And the traffic volumes are not that significant, even with all the new development and the things that have been mentioned here. Yes, there is traffic, and if a problem were to develop in the future, which I would be surprised by, but if it did, then it could be addressed separately. But I would not recommend placing stop signs at those intersections that would then be tended to disobeyed by residents over time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I believe that concludes public comments. Is there anyone who didn't fill out a card that wishes to speak? I'll entertain that if they didn't. Seeing none, is there a motion to close public hearing?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing's closed. So we'll now take up this ordinance, and not make everyone wait, which has been our typical practice lately. Staff, a quick overview and maybe to address some of the comments you heard in the public hearing.
Sure. I guess first I'll address some of the changes that were made since the Planning Commission meeting. There was a number of conditions placed on the approval at Planning Commission, and this plan basically reflects a majority of those changes. One of the things the Planning Commission wanted was the sidewalk location at this entrance to line up with the nature preserve parking lot. We also recommended that this sidewalk extend all the way up to the top here and then cut across and then make a loop to the tot area, as well as come across here and then come down through here. And then one of the things that we recommended, but they didn't do, I think it's because the numbering changed, but there's a gap between the sidewalk that starts here, it stops right here. So we're just asking for that sidewalk to connect. So there's basically a full loop around. There was another condition added that required 110 foot average lot width. So that changed the configuration a bit. We did check these before to make sure they all comply. There's one lot right here that does not comply. I think they can move these lots back a little bit and make it comply, but this lot currently doesn't comply. So we'll have to address that if it gets approved at the preliminary plat stage. So overall, they made the other changes. The open space actually went up a little bit from the Planning Commission approval because they eliminated a large lot that was located in this area here that was been removed now. So the open space overall went up by about a percent. In terms of the comments made, some of them are engineering, some are planning related, some are both. I guess the biggest issue is the road connections. Again, staff always advocates for road connections. And in fact, in our R1 conservation design, we actually required them as part of the conservation subdivision in an R1 zoning district, which is not unless it was denied, and they did come back eventually for a 5-acre conservation design. Those connections are mandated. There was mention of a couple other subdivisions. The gentleman was correct. Brighton Ridge and Knightsbridge do not connect. I believe at the time there was neighborhood opposition against the connections, and they did not get connected. Enclave actually does connect. There's actually 2 phases of Enclave, the older phase and the current phase that's being built right now. The middle Enclave connects to Highlander, which connects to Knightsbridge, connects to Swan, and then it'll also connect to the undeveloped land to the north. The second phase of Enclave, which is under construction right now, will eventually connect to the first phase of Enclave backed by the high transmission lines, and will also connect to Donges Bay when there's a 12-acre subdivision that gets developed there as well. So when we plan those subdivisions out, we require all the connections to be made to existing subdivisions. And as the gentleman stated, there's a number of reasons why we require the connections other than just connecting neighborhoods. From a snow plowing aspect, which Kristen can address, also for school bus routes and for emergency services, we feel that the connections are supported and appropriate for these types of developments. There was some questions about lighting. Again, this is that concept plan. There's nothing been proposed. If there is a lighting plan requested, to be at the time of a preliminary plat. We don't typically see lighting in subdivisions other than just the typical street light, and that we have requirements on how bright those can be. So, but we would address that issue at preliminary plat. There were some questions about retaining wall fence. I guess I'll let Kristen address that. And then the Planning Commission did talk a little bit about traffic impact, and they felt that traffic would probably actually increase through this subdivision for the residents of Huntington Park versus going the other direction. They didn't feel there would be a lot of traffic going from this new subdivision into Huntington Park. And one of the options we did present was a potential traffic impact analysis. They didn't feel it was necessary because they felt that most of the traffic would go through this development to get to Swan and then further points east or to the nature preserve. Other than that, I believe most of the issues were engineering related, so I'll let Kristen address those.
One would be to address the fences surrounding the ponds. We typically don't allow them because we need to have unrestricted access, but ponds are constructed with safety shelves. So unlike some other facilities, there is some safety built in with the actual design. As it relates to construction, traffic for the development itself, we do require at the time of preliminary plat through the development agreement that a haul route be identified. We would not permit for it to include Huntington Park roads. So all of the construction traffic for the development itself would be routed through other roads. That, of course, doesn't prohibit the home construction itself, but would address the majority of the movement. We would address debris, mud, and stone through both the erosion control permit and through all of the individual lot permits as well. So we do have a mechanism to ensure that that doesn't otherwise pollute the roads. As it relates to the concern of the curb and gutter, we do have a stormwater ordinance that would otherwise require them to address the standards for using curb and gutter instead of open ditches as a part of that, which is part of why they have the ponds included as otherwise shown. But that stormwater management plan is also addressed at the time of preliminary plan.
Thank you. Anything to add from the applicant's point of view?
Good evening. I'm Joe Bukovic with Point Real Estate, and Mike Carrick is with me from Carrick Homes, and he's also the developer on the project. From the streetlight standpoint, we are not proposing streetlights, maybe at the two entrances off of Swan, but not internally within the neighborhood. And natural habitat, going to the R1 with the CGA overlay allows us to preserve 30%, over 30% of the open space from the site, and we're preserving all the natural wooded areas and the wetlands on the site to help to that end goal. In terms of interconnectivity, we do have, as Mr. Zader showed, we have sidewalk going around the from the two entrances up of Swan, along the bottom road there, and then up to Huntington Park on Huntington Drive, and then up to the basically that open spot where Foxkirk comes in, and there'll be trails throughout, and all those trails will be connected to the Mequon Nature Preserve. So we thought about that when we were designing the subdivision. How do we interconnect everything? How do people in the south get to visit people in the north? Can they get to the nature preserve? That kind of stuff. So that's all included in the design. And for curb and gutter, there's a mixture of curb and gutter and ditch sections to kind of blend into the neighborhood to the west. Everything that we didn't speak of that has curb and gutter, like the cul-de-sacs on the end, on the north side, and then heading in that Foxkirk extension will all be rural ditch section. To kind of blend the two neighborhoods a little bit more. Yep, and I think that covers the rest of the points that I had written down from the public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, bringing it back to the council now. Any comments anyone would like to make? Any questions? Alderman Meyer.
Well, I'm not a fan of increasing or changing the zoning from 5 acres. It was a long fought battle to get these to be 5-acre lots a while back, and I don't see the need for, except for more profits, to have these zoning changed to smaller lot sizes. 5-acre lots are there for the purpose of also for that. You don't need to, they can support sanitary, they can support their own water wells. You don't have to expand those systems in order to do that. They are very capable of doing that, and they're very capable of even doing that on smaller lots to having that. but 5 acres is the appropriate amount for it that in the past we have taken a look at, and that's what is approved for. I'm very concerned about the connections going into Huntington Park. I don't see the overall dramatic need to have that done. The residents do have concerns. I do have concerns with that also. Those can be changed, and those can be not be connected inside there, or we can do like we have done in a couple other subdivisions where, in case of an emergency situation, you would have a road there, but it is blocked off with a break barrier inside there for it. It's supposed to be like a conservation subdivision for it. It's kind of pushing the envelope of what the definition of a conservation subdivision is, because normally it's a lot of land surrounding through a grouping of homes in the middle of it. This is really kind of pushing the envelope on it. And one of the major things that I see inside of it is the fact that we got 2 boulevard entrances, looking like boulevard entrances inside here. And if you take a look, lots 83, 113, and 14, which are the ones right connected to the beginning of that, those 3 there, it looks like those are just kind of shoved inside there because there's extra space inside. They're put an extra lot in there. And a matter of fact, this is not, when you're looking at that, it's not going to have a clean, nice look going into the subdivision for it, as a conservation subdivision should be. Is most of those are right up against the road. And in fact, 2 of those, and both of those that are on the south side of that, the residents, and you can quote me if I'm wrong, the residents that get even into those are going to have to make U-turns to get in on the back of that boulevard to get into if they're approaching in from Swan. So I think the positioning of those 4 lots right there are just bad position for that entranceway for the subdivision. I'll make some motions later on, but I'll wait to hear some other stuff.
Any comments from anyone else? Alderman Hancher.
Director Lundin, what's your opinion about the stop signs? If the connection is Foxkirk and Huntington Drive?
Similar to Mr. Barnes, I'd certainly want to look at the warrants. We know that stop signs aren't a means of speed control, and we'd really want to look at the volume of traffic. We can certainly model it or require the developer to model it for post-construction, but as they are public roads, we always have the right to evaluate intersections to otherwise determine if they meet the warrants for stop signs.
Okay. I live in this subdivision, Huntington Park. I've been there for over 30 years, and I am directly affected. My backyard faces the farm. So when I bought the house, I knew that someday that would be developed. And even the real estate said, walked me by and said, "You see that street there? That possibly could be a road." So I already knew that that's a possibility. Now this development, early on, I met with the real estate person, the developer, and he went through everything with me, and we had a couple of talks, and I also went to meetings with the city staff. So this is not something that I just looked at and not took the time and effort into examining everything. I met with the director of the Mequon Nature Preserve directly, and then I had city staff meet with them to make sure that the Mequon Nature Preserve is not negatively impacted on it. And I talked to her actually this week, and she said after the meeting with Christine and Director Lundin and Mr. Zader that she was very satisfied with the process of how the subdivision will be developed, because of they have to get approval by the DNR and the MMSD. So I talked to her. I talked to the fire and the police department. I talked to the chiefs of both of those departments. I said, having connections, do they have any negative impact on the subdivision? Their response was no. It's a matter of adjusting to the connections. Comments about connected to nature. Huntington Park is surrounded by woods. The southern part is all woods. We even have a nature walk trail in our subdivision. And to the west, there's woods. And there's wooded areas in the subdivision. So I don't see that as being a problem. I see animals are striving in those woods, so I don't think that would be an issue. I do believe that having the road connections is a positive because of the fact of, number one, you're going to have families there with school children and bus service, and also you're going to have emergency service. You are also going to have street snow removal. So to me, that would be something that I would support. As we talked about the lights, I'm pretty sure that it's not going to change. It's going to be similar to what we have here. I know a lot of people don't like change, and I know they have concerns, and I agree. I recognize that. But there's also, I got a lot of responses of people that want the connection. I have a couple emails here that want the connection. The same person on Foxkirk, I talked to the person that's across the street from Mr. Josie about the connection. She didn't have a problem with it. In fact, she wanted a four-way stop. That's why I asked, that's why I asked about that. I want to make sure if it's justified or not. I'm not an expert at that, to you. Years ago, they wanted to put a soccer field. Huntington Park had a big uproar about that. Now we have a subdivision that is less dense than Huntington Park. It's less dense. And it will, if anything, it would increase the value of Huntington Park. Not only that, but it gives us more of a sense of community. When you have, these are basically, these two subdivisions will be connected together because to the east is the Mequon Nature Preserve. To the south, there's woods and county line. To the north, you have the cemetery. To the west, you have the park. So basically, these are the two subdivisions that are to be together. I'm not in the mindset of saying that's yours and that's mine. I look at this subdivision as being a way of broadening our community of people that want to live in Mequon, that want to contribute to Mequon. I don't see it as a disadvantage. In fact, I relish the fact that we have more people that want to live in our community, that will enjoy our community, just like the people in Huntington Park enjoy our community. That's not going to change. People are saying, well, quality of life will go down. I don't see it like that. I see it as the fact that you have people that will make our community even stronger and making connections and having children connect with one another between the two subdivisions as I see it down the road. So I know some people don't want to hear that from me, but I see it as more of a positive than a negative. And this is the type of subdivision that would make the community better. Because the alternative is, it could be a development that would not be so inviting. And I am directly affected by this. I'm only one house away from Foxkirk. So I'm speaking from, and I've been in the community for 30 years. And I see it changed a lot. But I don't think just by adding 83 homes is going to change the quality of our life. I really don't see that. I only see it as being a positive.
Is that a motion, Alderman Hansher?
Yes, it's a motion to approve ordinance 2022-1620.
We have a motion.
I just had a question before that.
Alderwoman Schneider's got a question.
This is just a small point, but taking into consideration Alderman Meyer's concern that there didn't seem there was a lot of green buffer. And when I listened to the Planning Commission meeting, a resident rose and spoke out of concern that there might not be connection between the green spaces in Huntington Park and this new development. And I don't know a lot about green space, but I do know it's better not chopped up into small areas and better in contiguous areas. And this is just a small point, but I'm wondering, do they abut green spaces in Huntington Park to create buffers?
I don't believe Huntington Park on the west side of, or on the east side of their lots have open space. But you'll see where Jack pointed out before, where the sidewalk goes and connects. It'll connect to the trail going through the woods to the southwest. And the open space board that you see around the subdivision, the CGO requirements are 30 feet, and we provided 40. And you see thin strips going along to give a 40-foot buffer between the lots in Huntington Park. But then you'll also see that's where the trails are going, so you don't need a real super wide for a trail. But then between the two cul-de-sacs, it winds out, and then between the two cul-de-sacs and the road on the bottom of the picture, you've got another longer, wider strip there. And then when you get all the way to the bottom of that page, you've got a really, really large outlot that could be used for activities, buffer from Swan. And every lot, there's only like 2 or 3 lots in here that don't abut open space.
But does the open space, is it contiguous with some other green spaces in the subdivision nearby?
Absolutely. If you go to the left side where our stormwater is and all those trees on the side.
That was my question.
Thank you.
Alderman Giro.
I just have a couple small comments. We're adding water here. You're going to bring city water in?
That would be determined at the time of preliminary plan. But we do anticipate the request for public water, yes.
So you're going to have public water. So you don't have to worry about aquifers.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of 5-acre lots like Alderman Mayer. But when I listen to, primarily it's because where I live in my district doesn't have water or sewer. So the 5-acre lots were there for a reason. And I'm a little concerned about the farm runoff. That I don't think that should be going into Lake Michigan. If you guys could do something about that, I'd appreciate it. Other than that, I'm not the alderman for this district. I don't go into this district very often. And I think when I listen to the alderman, he should know a lot more than I do about what's there. So I look at it as he lives there. He lived there for a number of years. He's the alderman. He should know his residents. He should know what's going on. As long as the alderman is comfortable with it, Alderman Hancher is comfortable with it. I don't see any other problems with it. I mean, I don't like I said, I don't like breaking up 5-acre lots, but I don't live there. I'm not the alderman there. It's not the district that I represent. And if he represents that district and feels this is a good addition, then I have no. It would be foolish of me to try and disagree with that.
Alderman Parrish.
Not to perpetually continue this conversation, I just thought Alderman Hancher's points was a very thorough analysis and helped kind of get me to voting yes this evening in a moment. And mostly coming into this meeting, we always talk about land use and respecting the land use plan. And when you look at the land use plan around the site, I don't believe there's been any sort of contract, so to speak, to preserve this kind of unwritten contract to preserve this land. It's 5 acres. In fact, I think that ship sailed, 10 years ago when we decided to make this a central growth area and we approved the rest of the subdivisions in this area. And furthermore, if the stub out for the road connections has been there for 20, 30 years, and I presume there's been a road reservation recorded on.
It's actually right away. It's actually city right away.
It's just been very, I really sympathize with the homeowners, and I assure you that the rest of the aldermen up here do here too. But I don't feel like we're doing anything inconsistent. In fact, I think we're being very consistent, and this reflects a good development. So I just wanted the residents to know that they were heard, and we're voting our conscience here. So thank you.
Is that a second?
Yeah, for sure. Second.
Motion and a second. Okay. Alderman Stralchek.
Yeah, I just wanted to wait and hear what everyone had to say. I was traveling for that planning commission meeting, so I apologize to the residents for being out of town for this one. Kristen, I got a couple quick questions, and then I'll just give a little background for the residents so that they know where my thought process is coming from. What's the reason from switching from 5 to 1? Is it just identified as central growth, or like, can you talk just through that for the residents?
Oh, but Jack.
Or Jack, sorry, Jack.
Well,
Looking at Kristen, you were smiling, and
we discussed this at planning commission, and the planning commission felt that the going from a 3/4 to a 5 acre zoning was an abrupt transition, and they felt going from this 3/4 to 1 acre was a more appropriate transition, and it did match what we've done in the rest of central growth, which Alderman Parrish talked about. So they felt that that was the appropriate land use for this portion of it, and because stubs were already shown there, it was anticipated years ago that this would be developed at something other than 5 acres. And the other issue I think they felt was strongly about is the fact that there is the opportunity, as Alderman Guerrero said, there for sewer and water in this location versus other areas to the west and north that there is no sewer and water availability.
And then confirming what Alderman Myers said about the 4 lots that are in the boulevard, I absolutely hate that.
Yeah, it's not optimal. We kind of ran into this a little bit with Enclave, and what we ended up doing is we ended up having a restriction on driveway location so that there would not be a U-turn required. And so we make a restriction, and I can blow that up a little bit for you if you want. So we restrict the driveway to be the furthest west, so that if they're entering this lot here, it would be in this location, so they could still come up and go this way. And the same with this one here, so they could exit, go this way. Again, this is part of this. They're asking for the CG overlay requirements, and this meets the requirements, the same requirements we did in Enclave and Highlander. I mean, we do have options. If you don't really like the way this is set up still, we could have them shift maybe some of this open space up a little bit to bring those lots, or you could ask for reduction in that island that's in the land development spec, so that we could eliminate or even waive this requirement for that, or shrink down that island a little bit. But that is part of our land development spec that is required.
We've got a motion and a second. I just asked that the 2 people that made that motion just, address a condition to be determined by staff to address Alderman Myers' concerns. Just to give you a little framework on, about me. I'm from District 1, right? Jack still hasn't told me what percentage of the city is District 1. You do?
41%.
So I have 41% of the city under in my district, and it's kind of exciting. Most of my district is very rural, which is why I have such a large land area, and preserving 5 acre parcels for me is very important. If I would make a decision to shift from a 5 acre parcel to a smaller parcel, as in Alderman Guerrero's district, when I debated that point over there, I look at what's next to it. I look at what the intended surrounding uses of the area are. Being central growth, are there utilities that are available to go in and go out? I heard the one gentleman mention 1987. That was the year I graduated high school. So I've lived in here K through 12. The first subdivision that I moved into was on Maple Crest Lane, and we had River Forest Drive just to the west, and there was nothing to the east of me. About a year or 2 after moving in, I was sad to see the field that I played in and made forts in and enjoyed that aspect of nature. There were pheasants and everything else turn into homes. I couldn't even hit a baseball in that direction without hitting a house. So I feel your concern for the change. I'd like to address the road stub. If there's a road stub that's next to your house, it's intended to connect to a subdivision, period. That's usually what that's for. I don't see a ton of traffic traveling between the two. I see them exiting on the faster roads that aren't 25 miles an hour through subdivisions. I see that as being a standard traffic pattern, and I would look to Kristen to address any speed issues or any speed concerns with the resident in Alderman Hampshire, who I feel has got a really good pulse on what's going on with his neighbors. The conservation subdivision is designed to preserve open space and areas of enjoyment and not have lots spread out through the entire parcel. It's designed to preserve the treat areas. It's designed to have buffers against other subdivisions, and I'm seeing a portion of it here. If I was at Planning Commission, I would object to a few of the lots backing up against Huntington Park, but I'm seeing tree line there and everything else. I would be looking for, some greater buffer there, but I do like the fact that there's a sidewalk connection, which is also addressing the public's concern here. I'm still on the fence as to which way I would be voting on this. I don't like the fact that it's switching from 5 acre to 1 acre. I think that as a city, we owe it to our residents to know to communicate what's going on based on that zoning next to them. It was the policy previously when I came into office that, if somebody came forward with something that was reasonable, we would take that under consideration and we wouldn't be as broad reaching with, overlaying zoning. I like the fact that we've moved in recent years to a more clear plan, a more clear communication, but in situations like this, I'm seeing that there are slight differences in the property where this would be considered. I too feel for you residents who are going to have a subdivision at some level go in. If it was 5 acres or if it was, the 1 acre, my anticipation is that the road spurs would be used. There would just be less houses. I've heard you. I want to vote in your favor. I don't know if it's the right thing for the city, but if there's any additional discussion based on my long-winded, I see Alderman Parrish. I like talking before Alderman Parrish because I value his insight as somebody in real estate after I speak. So I'm looking forward to listening a little bit more and then making a decision. But for the residents that didn't feel that they were listened to at Planning Commission, I assure you that you have been here tonight. I know Alderman Hampshire is very concerned about this, and he's very concerned about you. And we've listened to you this evening. Thank you.
Can I just address one thing that Alderman Schneider brought up as well as Alderman Strelczyk? It doesn't show on this map, but there is an outlot to the rear of Huntington Park. It's not a square. It's like basically 25 to 30 feet, and it kind of runs this entire length. So they actually have an outlot and an outlot. So between the two, there's about a 70-foot width of outlot area between the two subdivisions. So to address your comment, there is connection between those open spaces. Those lots don't go all the way to the property line.
That I like to see. Thank you.
And
Alderman Parrish.
thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify what we're voting on tonight, simply adjusting the land use plan and concept review. So by all means, there's plenty of time there's no need to modify the motion, right?
Unless there's other conditions you want to make.
I like what Alderman Mayor said about, maybe we could tweak the roads a little bit here and there. This is all about land use. Correct?
Well, it's zoning and land use and a concept plan. So you're approving you would be approving the change to R3 with the CGA overlay. And that concept plan can be tweaked as we get to the preliminary plat stage. And, yeah, as long as it is consistent, and again, that's eye of the beholder a little bit, but if they can make minor tweaks to it as they get ready for their preliminary plat. Now, if there's specific things you'd want us to address as part of that preliminary plat, then I would add those as conditions of approval. And then we could work with the developer to try to address those conditions. But what we're approving is a concept plan and the rezoning and the land use plan amendment.
Okay. I'm going to leave it as is because I feel like pushing that lot, trying to get more buffer between the road is going to just push everything in and condense everything more within the development. So while we don't prefer the 4 lots by the road, I think it's probably makes sense from a spacing perspective. So I'm fine with the motion as is. Thank you.
Alderman Boucher.
Thank you. I have to first appreciate that the residents have come in and voiced a lot of concerns that that hopefully will be addressed in one manner or another, given that something is going in here. And I also have to echo what Alderman Parrish said concerning some of the issues initially with coming in, or Alderman Mayor. But I agree with Alderman Hancher for the points that you brought up, and definitely in support of moving forward.
Is there any further discussion? Alderman Meyer.
I'd like to make a motion, in addition, an amendment to the motion for that city staff to work on redesigning the entrances, and including lots 83, 1, 13, and 14, to address those issues there for those lots and that turnaround area.
I'll second that.
And just to further with that, I mean, I don't know how, because I haven't seen any concepts on how the homes are going to look. What I mean is that, are the garages going to be in the front? Are they going to be in the side? That's going to be a big determination on how those 4 lots inside there get laid out too. On that, because if you can say, yeah, you can push them all to the west, but where's the garage going to be for that particular layout for it?
Well, that's where I think they'd have to design the layout based on that lot instead of trying to fit a house that maybe doesn't fit on there. But we can work with them on that. I mean, they still have to meet all the other requirements of the CGA. So if you want, it'd be nice to have a quantitative distance maybe of how far we want that to be off that intersection. It'd be helpful for us to know. I mean, right now it looks like they're about 40 to 45 feet on the one side.
Did I understand the amendment correctly, that it's just to resolve the issue with the U-turning, no matter how it happens?
Well,
it was kind of a general direction to have staff working out.
Staff is going to work with, presumably staff will work with the developer on that to come up with a solution and then bring that for us. I mean, because we still have the other level.
That would come back at the preliminary plat
We still have levels
later,
to
yeah.
approve it at, yeah.
We're not going to forget about it. Yeah, it'll come back
Yeah.
in the next few months. So with that understanding, does that work?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the best of the 4, and this one shows like it's about 50 feet of gap here between this and that, and this is about 65 feet from here. Is that acceptable, or do you feel like there should be a little bit more room there, just so I can get a feel for?
Well, I think it should be pushed up a little bit more.
A little more than that even? So about 75 feet?
I mean, unless you're right at the end of the lot line of where that house is, where are you going to make that turn into that?
Well, you have here about, from the edge of here to here, I believe it's 44 feet. So that's a pretty decent distance, but we could make that.
But I mean, where the footprint of the home is, or supposedly where there's going to be.
Well, we would, under the preliminary plat, restrict the driveway access to be in this location, so that they would have to design the house so that they're coming in here. So that's, again, where I'd say they wouldn't be able to just put any spec on there. They're going to have to build a house on there that's going to fit that condition. But my question is that 65 gap here enough, or should we push to try to maybe get 75 feet to get a little bit more room on that?
I'd like to push a little more, so there'd be a little more room.
Okay, yeah, I think we can work with that.
So that was a motion and a second on the amendment. Let's take that up real quickly. All those in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the amendment stands. Now on the main question for the rezoning. Are there any further comments, or should we call the question?
Call the question.
I don't see any more comments and questions coming up. So let's call the roll on the motion to rezone.
Alderman Strelchuk,
No.
Alderman Bushy,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
No.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Garrell,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
5-3.
The motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Came to talk about this. We will now convene as the little bit of an unconventional thing here, but we will convene as the sewer utility district, just to break up the common council meeting a little bit. I think it's fair to let the record show that everyone who's here for the previous meeting is still here. So first on the, okay, we're on item 7, personal appearances and public comment. So citizens wishing to address the common council on any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time. If you desire to be heard, please fill out a comment card. I think we've actually got a couple. Time limit is 5 minutes, and we'll go right into those who've signed up and then see if there's any more. So we've got Richard Nagel from 4815 West Donges Bay Road. Wishes to speak on quick trip concerns and safety issues.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. Sorry it was me coughing in the background. I didn't mean to interrupt your meeting. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. I lived in this at 4815 West Donges Bay Road for 26 years now, and I originally gave support to Quick Trip. I was a single father going through divorce, and I committed to my kids to staying in the home that they were born in. Hans Zeitlow approached me from Quick Trip and basically said he had the ability to develop to the west and to the south of me. I granted support, not knowing originally that it was going to be a 24-hour station. And I had given original support. I continued with my support because the original station that was there was a very nice, small, friendly station. I want to say the issues have been ongoing for several years now. I'm going back at least 6 that I've been trying to go through the proper channels. I went to Quick Trip. I talked to them about some of my issues, which I'll address in a second. I got shut down. I've got emails going back to 2018, at least, not going into my archive folders, talking about these issues with Ms. Tellefson. Nothing has been addressed. Nothing really has happened. I made the city assessor aware of issues going back to a 2016 email, the last time we had an assessment. I've included Alderman Hansher in recently, probably in the last year or so, on some of the issues. I want to first and foremost address the safety issues. And I'm sitting on the deck with my son last June, and a gunshot goes off. I'm sure you all are aware of that. We're having a barbecue, and the gunshot goes off. Shortly thereafter, the police tape comes up. Somewhere shortly thereafter, 5 squads are called to the police, or to the Quick Trip, for what appeared to be, or what was rumored to be, somebody with a gun in the station. Now, on April 20th, an armed robbery at 12:37 in the morning. I want to talk about some of the issues that I've been talking about for years. One is garbage overflow. The garbage flows westerly, southwesterly, predominant winds, has been blowing in my yard, in the trees, in the river. It goes in the retention pond. It comes through into the backyard. There's an easement for their overflow. Literally hung up. I've talked to Quick Trip about that. I've asked them to address it. If I've seemed a little bit edgy, I apologize. It's been a long 6-7 years. I've had managers come out and say, oh yeah, we're going to build a fence. And I point at the garbage in the trees and all over the place, and I'm talking mass amounts of trash, only to not have them address it by saying, we'll build a fence. There's no shelter at all from the traffic that's coming in off of Cedarburg Road. The lights are coming in, pointing back at the house. Everything has been cleared for them to build their station. I've been working, trying to get folks to address this, saying we're a target back there with all the increased traffic and the increased activity and the nefarious things that people are coming to the station for at all hours of the night. We're a target. I've been asking for a fence to be built. My boys were awakened by a fight at around 2:30 in the morning in the last 2-3 years. 2 ladies fighting in the middle of Green Bay Road. They had it on a Snapchat. I was trying to hopeful that my son still had it. And then right after that, they're at the edge of the driveway recording this. An intoxicated man comes down to the end of the road at the dead end. They said he bumped into the guardrail. They thought it was actually kind of funny. It's a little concerning to me. We have greatly increased night traffic coming to the end of the dead end. I've witnessed lewd acts at the end of the driveway, people parked there at the end of the night. If I'm coming home, high beams, or walking out with my cell phone flashlight, they generally will leave. The sheer amount of traffic all day long, parked all over the lot, trees, buses, delivery drivers. Dodges Bay is used often as an overflow for people there. There's a daycare on the corner, and the kids are walked up and down Dodges Bay often. They cannot contain their trash. I've suggested a large fence and some mature trees to catch the garbage. They reluctantly put up a 4-foot fence that was about 2 feet below grade, which provided nothing, and it didn't even span the whole back of the store. This is all going back. It's very, very well documented. The noise level has gotten to a point where it's just absolutely ridiculous in the middle of the night. The people coming and going at all hours of the night, the lights, the bass, the radio, the car alarms going off, the service vehicles, all hours of the night. I've called a couple times. I haven't gotten anywhere, so I stopped calling, but I've been offered a cup of coffee. People flying in and out of the station, very few waiting for the street signs, many more turnarounds at the dead end, people parking and sitting. The neighbors have had people drive through their yard. There's young children at the end of the road. My kids are now at the age where my son's coming home from Michigan State and transferring to Madison, and my other son's going to stay with me and go to UW Milwaukee. They've proven for years they cannot contain their trash and the nuisance. And now with all the safety concerns, it's an issue, and I wanted to make sure that I brought it to everybody's attention here so that it's formally on the record, because I've gotten nowhere in any of the talks and attempts to try to work through some of the city officials. Now, I will say, you guys did have a gentleman that retired here a while ago that was your code enforcement officer, who apparently wasn't seeing any problems, and all of a sudden Mr. Pinswer came on board and started issuing citations. So I'm grateful for that. I think he actually got out of his car, looked around, saw some of the things that were happening, and is taking action. So I'm very grateful.
We're about a minute over.
I guess what I'm asking for you guys to do is to shut them down at midnight. Shut them down at 11, open them up at 5. Your ordinances specifically talk about endangering the area, the community. They talk about real estate valuations. Both of the last 2 assessments, your assessors have agreed that there's an impact to that, and that was prior to the armed robbery. I'm asking that you guys get the light trespassing under control. Cars line up for the car wash, my whole home is illuminated. A large fence, trees would capture the garbage. It would stop the light pollution and may even stop a stray bullet if this stuff continues. I'm asking you guys for your help here. If you guys want any more information from me, Alderman Hancher has my number, Kim Tollefson has my number. I'd like for this to be addressed further, please. And if you have any other questions of me, I'll wait around till the end of the night. I know it's been a long evening for you.
Thank you, Mr. Nagel. Next, we have Perry Robinson, 4811 West Dodges Bay Road, also complaining about Quick Trip and wishes to speak.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My wife, Sarah, and I reside at 4811 West Dodges Bay Road and lived there for the last 7 years. For those who may not be familiar with that location, we are directly east of Quick Trip, separated by a vacant lot, and to the east of our home is the river. I joined my neighbors this evening to register a public complaint against Quick Trip. This complaint comes after a number of chronic issues with respect to the store. For years, my neighbors and I have attempted to register our complaints with the city and Quick Trip corporate. Our experience has been that those complaints are usually addressed in an intentional way by Quick Trip store management, but as time moves forward, the same issues are repeated. My concerns, and I believe shared by my neighbors, fall under 4 areas of complaint. 1, light trespass during evening and overnight hours. 2, noise emanating from the property to surrounding residences at all hours of the day. 3, chronic issues of trash waste management. And 4, public safety. Now, one might certainly argue that the first 2 issues are to be expected by homeowners who have elected to purchase private residences in the vicinity of a gas station retail store.
Sort of like a person who buys a home by an airport and subsequently complains about the noise or light issues caused by air traffic. And frankly, at some level, I might agree. So in the interest of time, I will leave those charges for others to address. That said, the light and noise pollution have persistently gotten worse during the time we've lived at our residence. However, I do wish to commend Scott Pinzer of the code enforcement staff, who has of late been very attentive to our concerns, and in fact, I believe may have urged management to shut off their car wash lights after the facility closes at 10 p.m. Heretofore, that had never been done. With respect to the latter 2 points, chronic issues of trash, waste management, and public safety, I will argue that Quick Trip meets the definition for being characterized as a chronic nuisance, defined in City Ordinances 50-6. First, the trash refuse has been a chronic problem, and unless Quick Trip management knows they are under city scrutiny, they do not actively manage their waste. We've been amused when city officials of all stripes have indicated to us in the past that, quote, things seem to be better. Things seem better for a time. Once they feel the active scrutiny is passed, they return to the same behavior, not owning their trash. The trash comes into our yards, it flies down and into the river, and even has been discovered in yards past the Sybaris. This is not right. All of us have spent our free time picking up trash, and I mean long bags full, from our respective properties. I've threatened to dump a full black lawn bag at the Quick Trip front door around 7 a.m. during the weekday rush, but never have taken that action. The city apparently agrees that this is an issue, as in the last 12 months they've issued at least 4 tickets, I assume for littering, per Scott Pinzer. With respect to safety, do I really need to say much? You are undoubtedly aware of the issues. I personally have seen the police called to Quick Trip for firearm discharge, armed robbery, and I believe a drug bust, all within the last 12 months. I'm certain there are many more than those 3, and if I had time to submit a FOIA request to obtain police call records for the Quick Trip over the last 12 months before tonight's meeting, I would have, because I'm curious how that data would illuminate this issue. However, experience and logic tells me there surely have been more incidents than just the 3 of which I'm aware. In fact, I recall 2 or 3 years ago when I sat in a Common Council meeting and Kim Tolfson reported that the highest number of police calls over a period of time at that point were not surprisingly at Quick Trip and the Sybaris. Given these ongoing chronic issues, I'm asking that Common Council take whatever action it needs to achieve 2 outcomes to assist our neighborhood and address a portion of the concerns I've outlined. 1, revoke Quick Trip's conditional use as a 24-hour business and instead move to an 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. open. We as a neighborhood believe that while moving to these hours will not entirely eliminate the above problems, it will certainly reduce the issues of light, noise pollution, and safety concerns. 2, require Quick Trip management to address their trash management issues by erecting at least a 10-foot fence curling to the south and north of the property and running the length of the eastern property line. The fence needs to be at least 10 feet above grade to be effective at retaining windborne trash. Additionally, Quick Trip Corporate clearly values landscaping as the property is replete with beautiful and large evergreens. Unfortunately, they all lie along the Cedarburg Road upper Donges borders. We feel similar-sized trees will assist in abating the trash issue, as well as potentially reducing noise and light pollution if planted along the eastern property line. Now, undoubtedly, Quick Trip will oppose to taking on these expenses and certainly will strongly oppose new hours. But we feel this is required given city ordinances which have been continually breached. Again, I recognize one could argue they are in compliance, but my read is one could just as easily argue they are not in compliance and or minimally not behaving as good neighbors in a mixed residential area. Recently, I checked how many gas retail stores exist in Mequon, and I believe if my friend Google is correct and current, I count 8. It appears the only stores open 7/24, aside from Quick Trip, are 2 mobiles, one at the Tosa and Mequon Road intersection and the other on Port Road. The 2 mobiles are not in mixed residential areas. Both sites are heavily commercial. The other 5 stores within the city all close before midnight, or so it seems. All of us wish to be good neighbors with Quick Trip. In fact, many of us are some of their best customers. We feel we've been patient with the retailer and with the city, but unfortunately, just when we seem to take a step forward, it inevitably ends weeks later right where we started. Safety is getting worse and worse, and I think it's only luck which has prevented a tragedy, and only time before one occurs if you fail to act. Finally, as my parents taught me, nothing good happens after midnight. And I submit that while a simple and perhaps old-fashioned adage, it fits perfectly for this particular scenario. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Next, Jeremy Lesage, 4828 West Dodges Bay Road, also speaking about Quick Trip.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I echo a lot of the concerns of my neighbors. We like Quick Trip. We don't mind it being there. It's a nice store. They just need to own their trash. It's their trash. They brought it to our neighborhood, and they need to own it. They need to take care of it. I'm told that they will not cross the road to pick up the trash. So as soon as the wind blows it across the road, it's no longer their problem. My kids and I have trash offs where we take large trash bags and collect trash on a regular basis. That all has come from Quick Trip. It's just not right. And they just need to own the problem and be responsible and be good neighbors. I hear they're a very good place to work. They take care of their employees very well. They just need to be good neighbors. As far as the safety goes and hours of operation, I stood here and opposed them being open 24 hours a day. The first plan had all of the lights at the exit coming right to my front window, and I was thankful that this council saw fit to move the driveway so that we did not have all those lights coming in our front window. That being said, with the gunshots and the things that are going on, I've got young kids, and that just needs to be addressed. There's no reason for those safety issues to continue. They need to become good neighbors to us. I think we're good neighbors to them. We're good customers. And if there was a gas station that we were going to pick to have near your house in Wisconsin, I think you pick Quick Trip. But they seem to not care about the neighbors that they have at this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lesage. Next is Paul Coulter, 10406 North Cedarburg Road, also speaking about Quick Trip.
Hello, thanks for allowing me to speak. My wife and I own and operate North Shore Preschool and Child Care at 10406 North Cedarburg Road. I'm also a resident in Mequon, about 3 miles to the east on Dodges Bay Road. So I come at it from even that far away from a citizen standpoint and from the business owner standpoint. My first concern, I share all the concerns of the neighbors, but first and foremost is safety. When we opened the child care center there 8 years ago or so, we took it very seriously. The children's safety is our number one concern. To hear that there's armed robberies, gunshots, within 100 yards, not even a football field away, is disconcerting to say the least. As a resident, even though I'm far removed from there, it's also a concern. You don't get that type of behavior in other parts of Mequon. The trash, there's two different issues with the trash, is the way I see it. One is the trash that blows during the day from the Quick Trip, and that, less your guys' concern, I believe, is Quick Trip should be responsible for that. They do say that they can't cross the road, which leaves us to be picking it up. But the other concern I have is that we'll come to the center in the morning and see just garbage bags, fast food bags, cigarette butts, ashtrays emptied out in our parking lot on our lawn. This after cleaning up at night, you're going to hear from possibly from a resident nearby who also works for me, who took it upon herself to start cleaning and be picking up trash all the time at the center. And there are many times where she'd clean up at night, only to come back in the morning to meet a prospective, baby enroll and have trash all over the parking lot, cigarette butts, beer cans, this is all coming from, you know, the midnight hours. The gentleman over here said, you know, earlier something I really enjoyed, actually. I'll just end it with this. You know, he said doesn't like to talk mine or yours. This is everybody's. We're all residents of Mequon. My question is, what good is it doing Mequon to have the station open between midnight and 5 or 11 and 5? I don't think that many Mequon residents are using that at that time, and that's you know, something that I'd like you guys to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. Last, we have Tim Hetrick, 10212 North Cedarburg Road, also speaking about Quick Trip.
I will make this very quick because we are within 1/10 of a mile of each other. We're pretty much in agreement on everything that has been said here. The noise that comes out of the place at night between 11 and 5, you can tell just by the stereos going by where they're going quick because again, boom, so people, and this goes on sometimes all night. On a Sunday morning, I could be sitting on our back deck, which faces the river, and if you just listen nice, you hear the car wash is ready to enter now, but you need to be told the noise from the fans that dry the cars carry into our lot. I'm next door to Sybaris, so that's a good 200 yards. And the noise sometimes is nonstop. Cars are getting washed, or you hear the fan go on. The fan goes on. The fan goes on all morning. So it's just, my main concern is their hours, the violence that's going on there now, and then the trash and the pollution. It's noise, pollution, and trash. And I'd like to just see it addressed, as everybody else says, you know, the way that they would like to see it addressed with either fences, barriers, or some action to keep this down to a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hetrick. That's the last comment card we had. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on any matter not on the agenda? Okay, we've got, could you come up to the podium, please? And just for the record, state your name and address.
I'm Debbie Hetrick. I live at 10212 North Cedarburg Road. So I live very close to Quick Trip, and I also work at the daycare. So I'm the one who's always picking up garbage out there. And it's true, we'll clean up at night, and in the wee hours, that's when it seems to be a real problem where people get bold. So we are really hoping that we could have a time that it's shut down from like 11 at night to 5 in the morning, which we all agreed is not unreasonable. And it would be a compromise and start the ball rolling for them to become better neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw one more hand.
Hello, my name's Michael Radmer. I live at 10436 North Cedarburg Road, pretty much right across from the old Alpine Village, the third house up from the corner. One of the items that has not been brought up, and I think is what's caused a lot of these problems, is how big Quick Trip has gotten. So big to the point where I'm outside, I don't know how many accidents, 3-4 accidents a week sometimes at that corner, to the point where the state of Wisconsin is now involved. I'm sure you guys are aware that, well, I call it stealing. They're stealing part of my property, part of the daycare, part of Red Cedar, to shift the road over. And a lot of that is because there's so much more traffic over there. All those people turning into Quick Trip, there's so many accidents, and I don't think Quick Trip is pretty much able to handle all that excess people, business, and because of that, some of the other items are falling off. The litter problems, the caring about their neighbors. So I don't think that has been brought up, and I think it should be, because traffic has gotten a lot worse, and Garbage is a lot worse, even for me. My dogs pick it up all the time. So, and I know it's Quick Trip because it's Quick Trip wrappers. So, that's just what I want to bring up.
Right, thank you. There's no one else. We're gonna move on with the rest of our agenda here. We've got next public officials reports. I've got nothing, but I understand the city administrator may have something.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Nurbin, members of the council. Just two quick items, given the late hour. With summer quickly approaching, we're feeling the warmer weather here upon us. The city has a number of employment opportunities that we're looking to fill in the coming months, including interns in our forestry division, the planning division, as well as the engineering division. So if there are students out there with an interest in those disciplines, we have internships. We're also looking for maintenance workers in our parks and in our highway divisions. These are seasonal positions that work on a full-time basis supporting our public works and our parks departments. We also have available positions for lifeguards and front desk staff at the Mequon Community Pool, which opens the second week of June. And then my other quick update is the Memorial Day Parade will be back here in 2022. Last year, it did not take place. It will be stepping off from Grace Lutheran Church in Thiensville, starting at 10 a.m. on Memorial Day, which I believe is Monday, May 30th. And observances will again be here at Mequon City Hall immediately after the parade in the neighborhood of 10:45 to 11 a.m. on Memorial Day. That's my report.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. We have 13 sets of meeting minutes and a resolution 3948. Resolution approving revisions to the Mequon Aldermanic Ward listings, Aldermanic Ward map, and polling site designations due to assembly redistricting. Is there a motion to take up the consent agenda? Motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those items are approved. Next, we have ordinance first readings. The ordinance will be read, but maybe not acted on, but a couple of these we may, and I'll get to that in a moment. The first one is ordinance 2022-1621, an ordinance amending the planned unit development for property located at 12831 North Port Washington Road in conjunction with expanding hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. This was recommended by the Planning Commission on April 25th. It is a first reading. Ordinance 2022-1622, an ordinance revising awards of Mequon Aldermanic Districts 1 and 4 due to assembly redistricting. Recommendation forthcoming by Public Welfare.
That was approved.
It was approved, and this is a first reading, but we're going to ask for someone to make a motion
Move to suspend the rules and take up ordinance 2022-1622 and vote on it tonight.
Motion and a second, and the reason for suspending the rules is due to a time crunch put on us by the state, not because we like doing that.
Can I say one more thing about this? I just want to emphasize for someone who may not have understood this from the public, that this doesn't change the aldermanic districts and it doesn't change the voting locations. It's just making a little sub area between some aldermanic districts because of other entities interfering with our lines.
Thank you for the brief overview. We had a motion and a second. Was any further comment?
You're not messing up District 1, are you?
Oh, that was a motion to suspend the rules. Okay, let's vote to suspend the rules. Whether there's a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we can take up the matter. We already had a little bit of commentary. Is there any other comments to add or questions? Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that is approved. Next is ordinance 2022-1623, an ordinance amending various provisions of the Mequon Municipal Code in connection with the establishment of the Southern Ozaki Fire and EMS Department. Recommendation forthcoming by Public Safety. Oh,
It was recommended by
it was
public safety.
recommended, so record it was recommended. It is a first reading. And that's it for the ordinance first readings. Next, we have ordinances. Ordinance 2022-1618, ordinance creating section 1026 of the Mequon Municipal Code related to residential swimming pools. Recommended by Public Welfare Committee on February 8th, first reading at Common Council on February 8th, tabled at Common Council on March 8th, recommended by the Public Welfare Committee on April 12th. And is there a quick overview? Maybe we don't need that.
Sure. I can just very
Quick overview
quickly.
from the city attorney on
Sure.
what changed since the last time it was at this
Yep,
body?
since March, when it was last before the council, there were concerns at the time about kind of shoring up the definition of a public or power safety cover and the conditions that would be required for it. And we did that. If you look at page 103 in your packet, you see that we amended the definition. The definition as amended basically codifies two requirements. Number one, that it's 485 pounds worth of weight that it supports. That number was identified because it's a number that should relatively safely hold two firefighters and their gear. If they would happen to stumble in the backyard in the middle of winter, fall into the pool, it should support them. Likewise, we require that the switch that operates the facility be at least 5 feet off of the surface to which it's attached. And then the third change, which was not something that was directly identified in March, but it was something that staff identified, is on page 105. We just clarified that the supervision of the pool would be done by somebody that's at least 14 years of age. That number was picked primarily because that's the age at which most states allow folks to start lifeguarding.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. And I've been reminded politely that we need a motion to remove this from the table first. So is there a motion to remove from the table?
Move to remove it from the table.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of removing from the table, please say aye.
Aye.
We're off the table. Any comments and questions based off of the city attorney's brief description? Alderman Boucher.
It's not based off of a brief description, but an overall comments on this. And actually, it's good timing, as the city administrator said, summer is here. So pools are a good topic. I actually find myself in a rather odd position, not owning a pool, and yet feeling strong about this issue. Over my time here as alderman, council has been very forward-thinking on a variety of topics, and most of these come through from either business proposals or city staff coming up with great ideas to maintain Mequon as such an excellent place to live. We have now one of our more rare cases of residents who initiated this a while ago, and now we have it before us. On packet page 111, there's now the ISPSC standards that are included in there, and the items that the city attorney mentioned. And I just want to note again that there's 33 states that have now approved these standards. Actually, it's 32 states. One is the highly bureaucratic Washington, D.C., and they yet approved it as a standard. And within 19, because of the way it's divvied out, that there's a total of 391 local municipalities that have also adopted these standards. And as far as I know, from what I could find, none of them have rescinded this adoption. So that's, I think, an excellent statement. And then just overall, again, when we come up with the different forward-thinking ideas here, we go around here with excellent ideas, suggestions from everyone, and trying to find reasons to approve new projects that, like this, are keeping up with technology that is constantly changing and advancing in all sorts of areas. Technology is all around. And I think that it's excellent that the council has the opportunity to help residents
go forward. And again, keeping Mequon an excellent place that's keeping up with technology. Thank you.
Alderman.
I was actually on the committee that reviewed this, and I voted against it at the time, and I still have reservations about it, as do many other people in the community. As you noticed, we got some other information today about it. Part of it is that I think it gives a visual cue to people that there's a pool on site for parents and children when you have a fence around it, as opposed to being flush with the ground. Part of it that it's passive. You don't need someone to actively close anything. It is a fence. They close automatically when you leave the door. And I understand that these pool covers have great capacity. They do require intervention, though, for people to close them. And it's a challenge, as you noticed from the staff report, for city staff to address concerns that might be had by the neighbors if the person is not closing their pool cover. By the time an inspector comes there, the pool cover may or may not be closed. It's hard for them to verify the proper use of the pool. I just am concerned that as time goes by, that these pool covers may not be closed all the time, and because they aren't easy to identify in the neighborhood, I worry that a mishap could happen. So, still favor of fences.
Alderman Giro.
We spent a lot of time on this at Public Welfare. At first, when I saw about pool covers were coming, I said, I've had a pool now for 16 years, actually 17 years here in Mequon, and I thought, come on, these pool covers, those aren't safe. Well, pool covers aren't safe. They're really not. But that's not what we're talking about here. This is a technological innovation that came around in the last 5 or 6 years. It's a power safety cover. And when I read about those and looked at the data and talked to some of the people who install them and the experts, I thought, these things are outstanding. There's no way a kid can drown in one of these things when they're closed. And talk about fences. I have a pool. I had my pool when I bought my house. I was supposedly grandfathered. The city came out and said, no, you need a fence. So I put the fence up. It's quite expensive. It's a nice looking fence. It's not a cyclone fence. It's not an ugly fence. I wanted a nice fence. That was 17 years ago. It cost $16,000. You know what? Nobody ever came and inspected that fence. Nobody ever came from the city and looked at that fence. I leave those gates open all the time. And in the wintertime when it freezes and thaws, some of them don't even work. The gates don't work, so I have to make sure they're closed. I use that fence mostly just to keep the dogs in the yard. Nobody inspects these fences. They can be open at any point in time. A kid could climb over and get in the pool because I don't have a power safety cover. A kid can't get into a pool that has a power safety cover when it's closed. And that's part of the ordinance, that it has to be closed when the person's not there, somebody's not watching it. By the way, these also they're really good to have. They preserve energy for one. You use very few chemicals because they're locked and closed most of the time. Keeps leaves and debris out. I get inside my pool, I get frogs, I get salamanders, I get rabbits, I get squirrels, a deer, break through the cover that I have in the wintertime. None of that would happen with a power safety cover. None of that would. It also saves water. So otherwise, in the summertime, I put like 6 inches of water in that pool when it's hot out. You don't have that with power safety covers. And when it comes to enforcement, how do we enforce anything around here? What happens is when you have enforcement, somebody complains. Okay? Your dog's barking. By the time the police get there, usually the dog's done barking and the police talks to the neighbor and gives them a citation. I have people who trespass on my property, a place that I bought. I hear gunshots in the neighborhood out of season. I call the police. They show up a half hour later, say they don't see anybody. a lot of this stuff, it's all complaint driven. And then if you do catch them, the city attorney writes them up, somebody writes them up, $300 a day fine until they fix it. More people have drowned in man-made hazards around and natural hazards in Mequon. The river was like just a few years ago, a lady disappeared and then we found her downstream a couple miles. In the river, we don't have fences around there. The lakes we don't have fences around. These countless ponds that we dig all the time in all these subdivisions, there's no fences around there. You look at it as, and I just recently I see that somebody drove their car in the river and they had to be rescued from that. It's highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely we'd put fences around any of these man-made hazards. Alderman Bushy said, you know, I sort of put it my way. The status quo typically at Mequon City Hall, or in government, I should say, is the default mode. We've always done it this way, and we find reasons to say no. I say reasons to find why we should. And there are good reasons to have this. It's good for the community. It's good for the environment. It's 10 times safer than any pool fence would ever be. Kids can climb over it. They can pull the latch out when I'm not around. I go on vacation for 2 weeks. Who's watching that pool? Nobody. Nobody. A fence? Well, the fence is there. Okay, good. Somebody died a lot easier with the pool cover. They couldn't get into it. I saw this lady, I think it was Amber, right? Sent along a picture of her chasing a ball. Just run right across it. We have pictures in our thing of whole families standing on these things. It is an invention. It is something that 33 states have already adopted, that they use. Our surrounding communities, a lot of them, Cedarburg, Grafton, some of those places already have adopted this. It's time for us to update our ordinances with the changing technologies. Last meeting was tabled because Alderman Urban said he had a friend who could, he said something like he could park his truck on there, but we wanted to know and set standards on it, exactly what the standards are, so that when this is approved, the next one that comes along has to meet at least those standards. I saw that when I was reading about this, they go from anywhere from the 485 pounds to 3,000 pounds. There are no setback. I don't know what the setback requirements are for pools, but I heard there's something like 15 feet or so. But the city attorney put these things in here. It makes sense. I don't see any kids drowning in with an automatic pool cover. And I saw on one of the where somebody mentioned that the Consumer Product Safety Commission states that 50% of the drownings amongst children 4 and under took place in a pool or spa. Guess what? Those pools or spa had what? Fences. They didn't have automatic safety covers. So this is not a pool cover. It's an automatic safety cover. That's the definition of it. And that's really all I have to say. But we did a lot of work on this. And I think it'd be great for Mequon. And it's the safest thing we can do. And I can't see anybody who would go out and invest the $22,000 or so into putting one of these in, and then have somebody come back from the city and say, no, you got to put a fence around it. They'd say, the heck with that, I'd never put one in, although they're much safer than a fence. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I get to Alderman Strelchuk, I'll get this right eventually. Someone did sign up to speak on this, and I should have taken that first, so I apologize. Amber Schrader from 10829 or 79? 79 West or North Wildcat Way supports and wishes to speak.
Thanks, guys. First of all, congratulations, Mayor Narbonne, on your new position. That's great. And I wanted to reach out to all of you, say thanks quick. We were able to rent this room yesterday as our HOA for our annual meeting, and I think that's a really great service that you offer to the community. So if anybody doesn't know that that's a service, you can actually rent this entire room for meetings. I think that's great. Thanks for offering that up. I think we've got to get back to some basics here when it comes to this fence, auto cover, pool issue. We've got to look at some statistics that are quite important. 87% of people who drown in a pool are the residents in that home. It's my children, your children. If it's your pool, 87% of drownings that happen are the people in your home. The Mequon ordinance requiring a fence does nothing, zero, zilch, to protect those people. The other 10%, bringing us to 97% of drownings that happen, statistically, are family members or guests that come into the home. So I'm hosting a party, there's a lot going on, nobody's watching the pool, somebody else's child falls in that I've invited to my home. That leaves 3% of people. So what happens to those 3%? I don't know, those are the 3% that maybe jumped the gate, wandered into your yard unexpectedly, crawled through the gate hole or whatever there may be. But those are also the drownings that happen from children who drown in toilets and bathtubs. And would you guys believe me if I told you that hundreds of children die every year in 5-gallon buckets?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, we don't put fences around our garages to protect our buckets from our children. The way that the Mequon ordinance is written provides a house to be a barrier. So you can have what they call a 3-sided fence. The fence can connect to your house, go around your pool. Your home can essentially be that one wall. That does nothing for the 87% of drownings that happen. So statistically speaking, the ordinance, the way it's written, protects less than 3% of people from drowning. The ordinance needs to be updated and rewritten no matter how we look at it. I think adding this addition, saying that in lieu of the fence, you can have this ridiculously safe pool cover, is the way the city needs to go. It's very forward thinking. Our neighbors to the north in Cedarburg have progressed forward, as have countless other communities across Wisconsin. I've sent you all several of those city ordinances. More importantly, I'd like to point out that Cedarburg has areas with significantly smaller house lots and allows the auto power cover. Therefore, arguments on lot size and setbacks should take notice that communities with much smaller lots and homes have adopted this ordinance with no issues to date. We need to go back to the main issue at hand, which is keeping residents safe. While a fence used to be the standard for keeping people safe around pools, the evidence I've previously presented, along with statistics presented by the Common Council and the General Attorney, or the General Counsel, proves that there is a better, safer technology available. If the goal is to keep people safe, the current ordinance as it's written, according to statistics proving the majority of drownings and accidents actually happen to the homeowner's family, is irrelevant. Statistically, a fence only prevents 3% or less of accidents. An auto power cover would not only protect neighbors, stray children, etc., but would protect significantly more people and protect those who live inside the home, the ones who are at most of the risk. I'm here again asking you to make Mequon a great community and to keep moving it forward and to offer residents a chance when it comes to choosing which safety feature works best for their family. In regards to your comment, Alderman Schneider, were you guys going by commissioner before?
No, now we're back to being alderman.
Okay, got it. You know, the fences, like Alderman Garrell pointed out, nobody comes and inspects that fence. Once you install it, it's a done deal. It is up, you have your fence, it's a false sense of security. Fences were, you know, the thing to do years ago because people thought that kept them safe. I have seen 4-year-olds that don't know how to swim open a fence gate and walk into people's backyard. I have a couple neighbors in my subdivision with pools. I have seen teenagers jump the fence because they think that's more fun. I have a teenager, they've jumped the fence, they go into the neighbors' pools all the time. I've seen fences that are latched open because people are doing their mulch for the weekend and they've kept the fence open. Fences are a false sense of security and they're just, quite frankly, they're outdated. There's better technology, there's safer technology that protects the people within the home, which is the 87% of people who actually are going to drown. So I am asking you all to vote in favor of this to continue making Mequon a forward-thinking community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schrader. Okay, back to the council. Alderman Strelchuk was next in line.
Let me start out by telling you my background prior to being in business and to being a council member. I was a 12-year competitive swimmer, assistant swim coach, head swim coach, lifeguard training instructor for over 10 years. So anyone is qualified to speak on what actually happens around a pool versus the ideal of what we think happens, that would be me. I can tell you I've seen very responsible parents that watch their kids closely. I can tell you that I've seen parents that are just nothing short of oblivious, claiming to be responsible parents. I'm not calling parents in the city of Mequon irresponsible, but if you use, with any true false question, if you use the word all, that answer 99.9% of the time is false. My concern mirrors what Alderwoman Schneider's concern is. The fence going around the pool creates a visual barrier to a pool. If you enter a fence and you're not allowed within that fence, you are breaking the rules and/or the law. You're trespassing. You're not doing what you should be doing. All this discussion on this pool cover is a really great option for people. It is safe. Absolutely, it could be safe. The 87% of people that are going to drown in their own pool also have the opportunity to purchase this. I was out sick when this was discussed at the last meeting, and my buddies were texting me that were swimmers. You're like, you're not buying into this, are you, buddy? I'm like, no, trust me. I know what's happened around pools, and I know what we've done when we were unsupervised. Swimmers are the worst culprits for trying to break the rules and doing different things when it comes to a swimming pool because we think we're invincible. I've heard stories of guys riding bikes into pools, doing things like this. I think you're going to just get a better running start without a fence. I don't feel that once this is rolled up and put aside, you're entertaining at a party, you've got several people over, you go inside to prepare your meal, or you bring your meal out, you're in and out. Alderman Girl's around a pool, he's going to tell me, oh, it's totally responsible. Everyone's responsible. There's no such thing as everyone's responsible. There's plenty of parents that are going to be focused on what's going on. That pool is open on all four sides. Anybody can walk into it at any time once that pool cover's open. If you have a couple beverages at your pool, like who wants a pool if you can't have a couple cocktails around it with your friends? You get busy. You go inside, you start chatting, you intend to go back out, you maybe don't, you forget the pool cover open, it's open for the evening, there's no physical barrier for the other people. Highlighting the fact that our ordinances are mainly enforced through complaint-driven calls. Okay, so neighbors got the pool open. What happens? Well, we're going to try to get them within compliance. Someone's going to go over and talk to them, they're either going to get a warning or a short-term fine. But do you really want to be the neighbor that's calling the pool's open every night? Do you want to be that neighbor, or do you just want to enjoy that person for being your neighbor and the friendship when they've got the pool cover open? I can't sit here tonight and tell you that every single person that's got one of these pool covers is going to responsibly open and close it. I can tell you a 14-year-old that's not lifeguard trained probably isn't the one that should be opening and closing that for his friends. My son's 14. I don't trust him to open and close a pool for his friends. He can barely pick up his socks. And if you've had a 14-year-old in your house, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You guys, this is great. Every single person in the city of Mequon has the opportunity to buy this who has a pool. You can put this on for safety for your own household. The pool fence is there for the people that are either surrounding, that wander in, or just as a physical barrier when the friends come over to see your friend. Like our neighbor had a pool, we'd go over and we'd go visit them, and we'd go, first place we'd look and it was in the pool to see if anyone was in the pool. We're all swimmers. We would have jumped in if that fence wasn't there and closed by the parents. Absolutely. There's nothing precluding somebody from putting up a fence. It's got a 4-side closure that they lock and don't let their kids in to prevent their family from drowning unattended. You don't have to have it open up to the back door. It's your choice. We're talking about safety. We're talking about responsibility. We're talking about the option here to have this pool cover. I think it has places where it's appropriate. I don't know that every resident within the city of Mequon, until the ordinance with enforcement's clearly written, on something that we're going to actually follow through with. I'm voting against this tonight as it stands right now. I don't believe in what this is. I feel that, great, if you like it and you've made all these arguments, and every single argument I've heard, great, write the check. Put it in your yard because it's the best thing since sliced bread. Don't let the water evaporate. Don't let the deer and frogs fall in. Don't let your children fall in. It's safe for your house? Great, absolutely, write the check, put it in. But everybody else within the neighborhood, when you have a pool, it tends to be an area where kids go, neighborhood kids, friends and family, they come, they go, they walk back in the pool. If that pool is open, I can guarantee you there's somebody that's going to be there that can't swim just as well, isn't lifeguard trained. And I can assure you that there are going to be people that aren't going to be paying as close of attention as we hope that they would, or we want to give them credit for doing so. Because I was a lifeguard for that many years, and quite frankly, all of the kids that I've saved from the edge of the pool, the mom was right there, but she wasn't paying attention. She was talking to her friends. So, guys, I disagree with this premise, and I'm voting against it, and I support you with whatever way you choose to vote.
Alderman Hancher is next.
A couple things I want to address. First of all, the city of Cedarburg requires a fence. I called the city of Cedarburg. They require a fence. It's in their ordinances. So I don't know. Cedarburg keeps on being brought around. Is it the village of Cedarburg, or is it the city that you're referring to? I don't know. But when I called the city of Cedarburg, they said that if you put in a pool, it has to be a fence. All right. Second of all, I talked to the fire chief. I said, in your 17 years of being the fire chief, how many people have drowned in the city of Mequon because of in a private pool? He said, to his knowledge, there has been nobody. He's been here for 17 years. I asked him, are you sure? He said, I have not had it. So the fence obviously is a good safety device. The last thing, a lot of accusations saying that our city employees are not monitoring the fences. Is this true? You want to speak to that? Because we have accusations saying that the fences are never checked. They're never inspected. Is that accurate or not?
When a pool is permitted and approved, the fences are checked at the time of final. So we check everything to make sure everything's in accordance with code. After that, we would only go out on a complaint basis. So if somebody calls and complains and says the fence fell down or something broke, then we'd go out and check and issue an order if it was something was wrong. We had one of those recently in District 8, Mayor Nurbin's former district, where there was a abandoned house that had a pool fence that collapsed. So we made the order put up a temporary fence until they could drain the pool and then finish it up permanently. But yes, we do go out and check them, and then it is complaint driven.
And
I had I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I had a recent inspection in Highlander Estates where a fence was erected, and during that inspection, I discovered that all the gates on that fence did not have self-closing latches. So they failed that inspection until they corrected the issue. And then I went back and tested them by opening them, watching them to make sure they self-close, and then they passed.
Okay, so
and then it's up to the homeowner to maintain those gates.
So inspections, I just want to be clear, inspections do happen.
Yes. I believe what you were referring to, I think the town of Cedarburg is what allows them, not the city of Cedarburg.
Right, and that's what the point I'm making, because people are saying Cedarburg, but it's not the city of Cedarburg, and there's not a distinction there. It's the city of Cedarburg that does not. They require fences. And as the other question I have is the fact that the city, your department is opposed to it, and because how to enforce it, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest issue. I think they're a great product. I think the biggest issue, and I think Alderman Strelczyk pointed out a number of these things, that requires human intervention, And there's other things in the code where it talks about it has to be, when the pool is not in use, it has to be under the outdoor supervision of a responsible individual at least 14 years. I don't know what that means either. That could be a kid cutting the grass, driving around a lawnmower, he is outside. Does that mean that's outdoor supervision? Or if they're playing somewhere else on the lot? It doesn't even say they have to be in view of the pool. So we could get a neighbor complaint saying their pool cover's open, the kids are playing in the yard. And I don't know if that's a violation or not, because the way this is written, it says outdoor supervision. And I guess our concern is that if some kid from a neighboring house comes over and falls in that pool, and even if their kid does see it, it only takes a minute or two for that kid to be in serious trouble. Is that enough protection? And I agree with Alderman Strelchik again, if we're really looking to change our ordinances and we want to look at safety as a paramount issue, I think a combination of pool cover and a four-sided fence would be the ultimate protection. So.
I guess that's what I'm going to vote against this because of the fact that I think a fence, again, I agree with Alderman Strelchuk, it's a visual, and the fence can be inspected, and it's easier to enforce.
A lot of the manuals for cover star automatic pools, even when you read through the manuals of these products, they have statements that still say adult supervision required.
Thank you.
Questions for staff?
Alderman Schneider.
I just had a couple of comments. It is a concern with people who have a fence and they use their home as the last barrier. And we did include language in this ordinance to add that they needed to use some other safety feature if that is the case, meaning an alarm, a temporary fence that they put up between their home and the entry point to the pool. So we did try to address that because it is a true concern that the homeowner actually is obviously homeowners' children particularly are at the most risk. And we tried to add language into the ordinance to address that issue. And as to the 3%, I would say that I guess the fences are working because the only people drowning in the pools are the homeowners and their guests. And I mean that somewhat facetiously, but I don't think you can use that 3% to show that that pool covers are better. But I agree that there should be extra protection if you are using your home as the fourth wall.
Alderman Parrish?
Yeah, mostly questions for staff. What are the current setbacks for pools?
Well, a pool, it's a little bit nebulous because our code requires anything that's a structure to be meeting the setback of the zoning district it's in. Now, that means 6 inches and more in height. So technically, an in-ground pool wouldn't have to meet the setback until you got to something that was at least 6 inches, like the ladder or the diving board, things like that. So you could have the concrete pavement abutting a property line until you got a ladder or something like that. That has to be setback. So typically, we tell people just put it at the setback, no matter what, just so you're not adding something later that
which is 15 or what can't
it depends on the zoning district. Minimum is typically 20. The most is 30. You do have some exceptions for non-standard lots, could go down to little as 15 feet, but typical is 20. And then conservation subdivisions typically have their own setback requirements. Some of those go down to 15 feet. 10 feet is probably the lowest I think we have in the city.
A couple other questions. Can someone explain like how this alarm works? So Rob's example, everyone goes in to cut the cake for the party, and does the alarm, I'm not a pool guy, so
I have no idea how the alarm works.
Does the alarm go on at that point to prevent
we don't have
random kids
the way this is written? It's per ASTM standard F2208, which we don't have access to, so we have no idea how this alarm works. And that's one of the things that if we do pass this, we'd have to buy that standard, and then we would have to read it and make sure that we can enforce it, because I have no idea. We don't know what, I had the same question you did. When does this have to be in the pool? When does it trigger it? If the kids are in the pool like they're supposed to be, the alarm shouldn't go off. So we have no idea how this works.
The alarm is generally on the door leading out there. I went to a house. I almost bought a house.
You have some that when the pool water is broken, it goes.
Yeah, there's that too. But if it's from the house to the pool, there's a door alarm.
Yeah.
Anytime you open the door, it beeps.
That's a separate one.
That's when it's
as part of the,
That's a separate distinction. That's under 2B2.
that's when the wall is used as part of a.
Yeah, when the house is the
3A
fourth wall of the fence.
3A requires the alarm for when the pool is accidentally or unauthorized entered, basically. So, and I get, it's per an ASTM standard, which we don't know. So we don't really know exactly what that means at this point.
Sure.
So I looked into these because you said that if we were going to pass the ordinance, we'd have to install them. The first one being the door alarm, which is just when you open your door, there's a beep or a word that says the door to the pool is open. I have those installed in my house. So every door that gets open, there's a chime that goes off. The other one being the device that actually gets fitted into your pool, and it's an alarm to tell you when the surface of the water is broken. So if the pool cover is open, that alarm would then be triggered. And you can turn it off. So if the pool cover is open, but I'm having people in the pool, obviously I don't want that alarm on. But if the pool cover is open and I'm not in the backyard, that alarm can be turned on. And typically there's a speaker that goes in your house, and it can also trigger your Apple Watch, your Alexa device, your cell phone, another like home blink. There's like a bunch of those new home protection devices out there. But then an alarm would go off to let you know that the surface of the water has been broken. So somebody runs outside, pool's open, they jump in the pool, your iPhone beeps, your watch beeps, or your Alexa tells you the surface of the water's been broken. Does that answer? I don't know what the ASTM standard is, but there's several different varieties of
fully written
products.
into the ordinance, which is actually really, I'm trying to get to yes, actually.
Yeah.
Because I understand technology. I actually understand, if you want my opinion, I wasn't going to get into it tonight because I'm not a pool guy. They find this topic confusing, and I don't feel like ultimately we've been provided, I just feel like it should be a pretty clear answer, and I don't feel like we've been provided data one way or the other. I mean, your stats are fascinating, and then, okay, what about the other 3%? Well, that's a life, I don't want to be blamed for that, but I understand there's risks with ponds and this and that. I recognize the great technology that now exists. I totally think this is acceptable on like I don't know the lot size. On a big lot, maybe you shouldn't have like a fence. If there's no safety concerns, if you have to have one or the other, a pool cover or a fence in a big lot. I'm thinking about smaller lots where everyone's closer together. There's very few barriers to keep neighboring kids from running across. And I'm still not quite hearing how to address that other than if this theoretical alarm is on, and it's loud enough for all the parents to hear and run in and hopefully get to that kid in time.
It's essentially
Is this really
a
worth
double
it?
layer of protection because, theoretically the pool wouldn't be open if somebody wasn't out there, and if you weren't utilizing the pool, you'd have it shut. So it's a double layer.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the Q&A, yeah.
Those are my questions. I guess I'm still struggling. I wish we could keep working on this because I don't think we're quite there yet. I don't necessarily have the information I need. I know that they want to vote.
I was going to say, is there any further comment or is there a motion?
No, I'm not making one.
I have a comment.
Okay, one.
Oh, I get to speak twice.
Yeah, you do. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. All right, so like I said, I've had my pool for 16 years, 17 years. There's a big fence in my backyard if anybody's been over there. And that's where we grill out and we party right all inside that fence. Everybody's inside of there. The kids are inside of there. I got a pool slide. So saying that, and I'll go in the house and the kids will still be out there. They're inside the fence. They're doing whatever they're doing. They could drown, whatever. They could do. They're inside my fence. They're inside my pool. They could drown whenever they want to drown. I don't have a pool cover, that kind of pool cover. So having a fence doesn't prevent anybody from drowning once they're inside of there. The kids can always get inside of there. And I disagree with Alderman Strelchek across the board on this because I have my own pool and I know how they work. You have a big fence, big backyard fenced in, pool's inside the fence. That's where you have your parties. That's where you have your fun. That's where everybody comes over. That's where I have my get-togethers. On top of that, your inspection, when you had went out and inspected somebody because they didn't have latches on it. And you went because the thing came down. There's no routine inspections that come out at all. Like I said, 16 years on this. So these things that you put them in there, the pool water gets broken, and the alarm goes off. When kids are inside my pool, there's no adult supervision. You know, if my son's out there, if somebody else was out there, he was 14 years old, he was a lifeguard. You know, him and his friends were out there. He wasn't supervising. He'd come in the house inside the fence. They can do whatever they want to do. They can drown if they want to drown. Same thing as if your pool cover was open and you're having a party. So I object that. And the other thing is, I was a kid. When I see a fence, I say, hey, there's a pool over there. If there's a pool cover and it's flat on the ground, I don't even know there's a pool over there. So like a fish, that's a lure. Oh, let's go over there and jump in that pool. So fence keeps people away. No. A fence will bring a wild kid in to jump in, Alderman Strelchuk. That's what I would have done as a kid. It's a lure. That's all.
Call the question.
Alderman Strelchuk.
I get 2 turns.
You do?
So let's just go.
2 bites at the apple.
I've heard everyone's objection, but like when everyone's objecting, they're all talking about how this is a safety item for closing it for the people in the house. Alderman Garrell, I have a lot of respect for you. I know that you're a responsible pool owner. Well, maybe if your kid's out there unattended at 14 and you're not watching them, you're one of those guys I was watching as a lifeguard maybe. But I think Amber would be responsible. There's no doubt in my mind that she would watch this like a hawk and she'd have it closed. But again, there's no enforcement measure that's set forth by the city. Like, we're here to talk about safety, not whether or not this technology is cool and or could work for most people, right? But as we're legislating for all people. I feel that in this case, the fence is always there. If you don't like the fact that it's not being inspected, let's add inspections. We can always bring that forward and have fence inspections every 5 years. I'm concerned that the electronics are going to fail on this and that water breaking device is going to go within 5 to 7 years. In the U.S. economy, when your blender goes, you recycle it or throw it in the landfill and you go buy a new one. So if that water breaking feature fails, and people don't get it repaired, how are we going to know as a city? We're not. So we're going to require inspections on that. I just think government's getting a little too big at this point where we're trying to like micromanage how somebody uses their pool cover. Just use your yard, but put up a fence. If you're going to be having a pool party and you're going to be grilling out, and you're going to be in a fenced-in area, you're having a pool party, you're there. But when you go in the house and everyone's done for the night and your fence doors are closed and or locked, which ideally they're locked, you've got a barrier for anybody else to go in. I think the specific example that I'm going to remind you on is that like when I was a kid and we'd go over to our neighbor's house who had a pool, those kids would come running from the street to go into the pool. The first thing they'd do is go into the pool. And several kids had fallen in. So they established a house rule that, hey, you don't even go into the pool at all. And they locked the door with the fence. The pool cover, yes. Anyone, again, has the right to put the pool cover in. Anyone can buy that. Anyone can put that technology in today. It's cool. It's great technology. I believe it keeps your family safe. I believe it keeps people out of it because it's more of a locked measure. But when you're not attending it and when people aren't attending it, I think people have a propensity to be distracted. People have a propensity to be on their phones and to do other things. And I don't feel that the attention is going to be to opening and closing, and I feel it's going to be an enforcement nightmare for the city staff. We voted down on things that were other good ideas because the enforcement was a pain in the butt for city staff. I don't see how this is going to be enforced. I don't feel that it's safer than a fence. I feel that once it's open, if you turn your back and your pool's open on all 3 sides, if not 4. And I haven't heard an argument that says that fences are unsafe. If somebody wants to climb the fence and get over and you're that concerned as a resident, put in both of these devices. Feel free to do it. Now your pool's secure to your level of comfort. But as a city, we're responsible for the safety of the community, and that's what we're voting on tonight, is the safety of the community. And if you feel that this could be left open and people could walk in inadvertently, or kids could come in and they'd rush into a pool or rush through a yard, and there'd be a little sister tagging behind, like you all do know with the neighborhood kids, and one would go into the pool because they think it's fun and they can swim, there's risk there. I just want to highlight the fact, I've seen it as a lifeguard, I've seen it as a swim coach, I've seen it as somebody in the public. I know how this works. Alderman Garrell, there's no doubt in my mind that you're a responsible pool owner. I've been in your pool. Ms. Schrader, I don't doubt that you're a responsible future pool owner if you don't own one yet, and that if you had this cover, you'd use it responsibly. I can't speak for everybody in the community that they would follow the same suit. Therefore, I still can't support this option over a fence from a safety standpoint. I've seen too much that could go wrong. I have enough experience in how situationally these things come in. I've saved lives of people that have fallen in the pool who thought they were great swimmers. And I've seen people that were unattended when the parents were sitting right there. This doesn't work. Sorry. Thank you.
Alderman Boucher.
Sorry,
We all get our two kicks at
I
the
will
can.
make this really quick. And I apologize already to my 14-year-old son. And that is, when he wants to put a new app on his phone, he still has to ask permission. So to your point, if I don't trust my 14-year-old in a swimming pool, which we don't have, so it's easy, I don't have to give him the code. That's one thing. Second, we heard this before, the people coming in talking about Quick Trip. Everyone has a phone that if there's something that's amiss, they do a little video and then they can show it to whoever, police or whoever has an issue. So we have a mechanism actually in place for people to report and back up when somebody's not in compliance.
Any more discussion or motion?
Move to approve.
I'm only kidding.
You almost got me there. So there's a motion. Is there a second? Alderman Boucher.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Bushy,
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I'm already up here. Yes. Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
I started Bushy. I started over here.
Who did you call?
Anyways, go ahead.
I think we've only, yeah.
we had one
One
roll call.
one roll call vote.
Okay. No.
Alderman Hancher,
No.
Alderman Garrell,
Oh, yes, and she already does have the automatic safety cover, so you're asking her to put a fence around her pool on top of that, but
That's your third time talking. Time out.
Parrish,
fire me.
I'm sorry, no.
Alderman Schneider,
No.
Alderman Strelchuk.
No.
So it's 2-5.
2-5. The motion fails. Next, we have resolutions. Resolution 3949, a resolution authorizing execution of professional services agreement for the completion of a class and comp study for non-represented positions with Carlson Detman Consulting, Appleton, Wisconsin, an amount not to exceed $27,750. This was recommended earlier this evening by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. This is monetary, so let's call the roll.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Garrell,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy.
And that is approved. Resolution 3950, a resolution authorizing.
Are we skipping that one tonight?
I don't think we are. We are.
Oh, we have to suspend the rules, I think.
We are not. No, we're.
I thought that Will said we're going to skip that one.
I don't think we want to skip it. The gentleman's waited 2.5 hours.
We're gonna be taking that up at Public Works in the future again. That's what I was
Public
told
Works
today.
couldn't meet today.
Works couldn't meet today because we couldn't
All right, so
have a quorum.
in short, effectively, you would have to suspend the rules to take up the item without having a committee recommendation. Another alternative would be you could call a committee of the whole for the purposes of discussing it. To do that, both are options under our code. Otherwise, without the Public Works Committee recommendation, it would we would just not consider it, and we would wait for the committee to forward that recommendation.
I think we should proceed. He's waited 2.5 hours. So can we call a committee of the whole on the fly? All right. I'm going to suggest we enter committee of the whole and take this up.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Do we have to vote on that? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Let's bring up the issue of, I'll finish reading it. Resolution authorizing the city to enter a master equity lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for subsequent leasing and fleet management of passenger vehicle segment of the city's fleet. It says recommended by Public Works on April 12th.
That's not accurate.
It wasn't recommended.
It never.
Never was.
There was,
I thought it came out without a recommendation. It just came out without a recommendation.
there was no vote that,
Oh,
someone just looked at it and said there was no, in the minutes, there were no vote. There was no vote done.
We had a meeting on it. There was additional questions to be asked on that. Questions were not answered yet on it. And so they were supposed to have a meeting tonight on it. It was not held. So then in talking to Will earlier today, then you said that we're going to look at that at a future date.
Well, that's not my decision, that's the council's decision ultimately.
I understand that. But earlier today, when I discussed this with you, you had said that we had canceled the meeting and that we're going to be, if you want, you can take that up at a later date for this exact resolution, correct? I understand we can take it up and stuff, but that's what, he said we could push that to another time because we haven't even taken a look up at Public Works.
My recollection of the conversation you and I had, Alderman Meyer, was that we had 3 items coming from Public Works.
And you said 2 of them that you needed to do. I mean,
2 were of a time-sensitive nature in terms of the fact that one was a contract approval and one was a grant application.
Right. And
That we would look
taking up
to,
the other one.
that we would hope that the council would suspend the rules, and if there were additional questions on the fleet item, that could be taken up at a future meeting of the Public Works Committee. I think I may have said something along those lines, but again, I can't speak for the entire council here
I
tonight.
understand it. Understand
Okay.
it completely.
So we're in committee of the whole. Why don't we at least get the questions out on the table that we wanted answers to?
What was that again?
We had some questions last time. We wanted answers. I think it's at least fair to entertain those at this time. We can choose to take no action. Yeah. So why don't we?
You guys do what you ever want to do. I mean,
Well, if we were going to cancel
kind
this,
of
we should
pushing
have.
things through for instead of it being a committee. I know committee of the whole is one committee, but
If we weren't going to do this, we should have relieved the poor gentleman 2.5 hours ago, or not even had him come in at all. So I'll take the responsibility for that. That's okay. What questions did we have coming out of the committee last time that we think we may have resolved now that we should discuss?
It was our understanding that we were looking for the comparison of the enterprise program against a conventional lease, which is what we included in the packets.
Is there any questions on the materials? in
so
the
I had a
packets?
question earlier the other day for interest rates.
Correct. I emailed this morning to indicate that the city does pay the interest.
Does pay interest, and the interest is set by Enterprise?
That's correct.
So there's nothing that we have inside of our ordinance or a contract with them that would say it has to be within a certain amount of parameters, whether it has to be according to X amount in rates. What I'm saying is that standard rates would be whatever, 2%. That has to be within that window of us to have the interest rate, or are we just giving them carte blanche?
Well, we would make those decisions as we went through to make those actual vehicle purchases or leases. Because presumably it will change over time. I mean, while we're entering into this master agreement, we would expect that the lease payments as we continue, or the interest rates, excuse me, as we continue through this process would change potentially in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. So those would be.
So that would be market driven. And the individual lease terms would be determined later. This is just the lease agreement.
This is the master agreement with Enterprise for that fleet management, yes.
Right, there's a secondary kind of agreement, the actual, I think you call it the open-ended lease agreement or something like that.
Open and equity lease agreement.
Right, that would deal with the specific vehicles that we would lease. The master lease is just the kind of general terms of the program. We would have the ability on each vehicle to say yes or no based on the terms that were provided. But that sample lease, that open-ended equity lease item does include a depreciation reserve and then a monthly lease charge, which is partially interest. And
well, they're going to charge 0.12% as a management fee for each one of them.
Correct. And yeah, so that leasing charge.
And plus the interest on top of that for it.
That's what makes up the lease charge.
So how did it compare, as a summary? We get our answer, how this compared to standard leasing, and are we comfortable with it? I mean, most of the people are looking to.
Well, the difference in between the
looking to
standard
Alderman
leasing.
Meyer as the resident expert due to his background.
Well, the difference is that there is a residual that is set up nationally pretty much. Each one of the leasing companies have a little bit of deviation in between that, but most, if you would take a look at leasing a Silverado pickup truck, let's say, most places would have it down at 60%, or 62% would be that straight across the board. This is going to be something different where the city and Enterprise, by direction from them, are going to be setting those residuals. Whether or not we want to pay more for it and then have a lesser buyout at the end, or whether we want to pay less on it and have a bigger buyout at the end. That's the way that this is being set up. So my concern is the fact that there's no overall control in this whole scenario. And no offense to city staff, but city staff doesn't have a lot of information or know-how inside of residuals and factors of that nature and that. And so I have a little concern that we're relying everything on Enterprise for this and not having our own people that are kind of versed in this being associated with it. That's my concern. Not saying that Enterprise would take advantage, but it's just good governance to have some oversight in seeing that.
Well, and I guess my comment would be a couple of things. I mean, we did have both the city attorney and the finance director review this. So while I certainly won't claim to have an expertise in lease terms, a combination of the two are those that otherwise oversee all of our lease agreements. I mean, we already have lease agreements for the Malibus. We recently have done a financing option for the excavator. So while they're done on a more case-by-case basis, that is kind of exactly the point of entering into the agreement with Enterprise, is to otherwise leverage them to do that on our behalf. But we still do retain the control through those agreements in terms of on an individual purchase basis, and certainly if the council set parameters under which we wouldn't exceed a certain interest rate or something
Well,
without further approval, we could
That's
certainly do that.
correct, but you're doing that on an individual basis, and those residual rates are set. It's not a situation where you can come into and doing your excavator and say, I want to only pay 30% residual on this one. Because of that, it's a set residual that they're coming up with. And I think most of those are that you're working on as a lease of purchase at the end, or so it's a totally kind of a different type of situation. So
Understood. That's why we tried to recognize that in that table. There are many different ways that we can approach fleet management. Up until this point, we have attempted to do so with direct purchase, but we're not funded at a rate that would allow us to take advantage of the resale value that enterprise is otherwise leveraging in this program. We certainly have the option of financing, which we've exercised for larger pieces of equipment, but at least the previous finance director had indicated that, there's kind of a crossroads in terms of where that makes sense for the city, and that's at a higher value than what the majority of these trucks are that we're otherwise looking to include in the program. So then we're, left at looking at either lease options or the enterprise program. And so this is the way for us to take advantage of lower payments on an annual basis that allow us to have a more frequent turnover rate on this particular group of vehicles. So you are right. We are, setting those rates differently than a conventional lease to be able to take advantage of that value so that we can turn the vehicles over more quicker and take advantage of that resale value.
because in the last 2 years, and maybe a little longer than 2 years, it's been a bonanza for people who have leases. And because of the fact that the values of those leases, those vehicles, are a lot higher than what the residuals have been on it. But that at some point is going to turn, and hopefully that we're not caught in the middle of that when that does turn forward.
Well, that's where we can make the decision as we turn each vehicle over, so to speak, whether we're going to purchase it out.
Even us, we don't know 2 years down the road what really that's going to be. The values on things. I mean, they're set by a national company, LG, and they pretty much get. So you kind of got an idea, but you really don't know what's going to be 2 years down the road.
Well, that's what I mean. Then, no offense, Ben, but that's at that point we could decide to discontinue the program. And if we want to go back to a direct purchase or financing, we know where we'll be in the program in terms of what we would need to do with the vehicles that are a part of that program. But Ben knows that's one of my first questions that I otherwise asked him was how we unwind ourselves from this if we otherwise decided either that it didn't make financial sense or we weren't funded for it. So while there's certainly a cost to do so, to either purchase the vehicles out of the lease if that's where they are, or to make the decision to sell it at the end, that we have the ability to do that based on whether that's the market or interest rates, or if the city is able to come up with a different mechanism to go through direct purchase that doesn't require the fees associated with financing or leasing.
Okay.
Alderman Mayor, can I clarify on who sets the residual? The city will have the right to choose what that residual is. Enterprise always uses a standard depreciation percentage for our reduced book value. So the city will always have a say on where they want that reduced book value before they sign any individual lease quote. Just to be
No, I
clear
understand that. I appreciate that. It's just that everybody doesn't have a lot of knowledge on those values.
Internally, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
mean, Enterprise is
and no offense to anybody inside of it, but
sure,
you basically have to be in the business a little bit to understand some of the workings inside of that board.
Correct. And Enterprise has over 600,000 leases currently rolling actively across the country. So we're going to recommend, based on our experience and our expertise, based on being conservative with what you were saying in terms of if markets change, we never want you to be upside down in a lease.
So I think this is the conundrum. We don't have internal expertise, but we're leery to rely on external expertise because we don't have the internal expertise. I think that's what I just heard. Don't giggle because it's accurate. I I don't know that we're moving the ball forward, and maybe I'll entertain another comment from
I'm just thinking back.
Alderman Parrish here, but it still seems like we're at a bit of an impasse.
Can I try?
Go, try. Oh, before we do that, let's
Okay.
give it a little bit.
All right, just let me try. I'll try to be brief. We discussed this very thoroughly at the last Public Works Committee meeting. It was like 20, 30 minutes. I believe we probably would have voted in favor 2-1, but I believe we tabled it as a courtesy to Alderman Mayer so that he could get the questions answered, between now and then, or vet it tonight at the Public Works meeting. So I think you are getting your chance here tonight. We're in good company with your expertise. This is such a low-risk program. That was kind of my takeaway at the Public Works. We're talking about the passenger vehicles, like 12 of them. It's an experiment. I mean, there's no other way to say it. In every budget year, we say, should we be doing lease versus own? And so here we have like a low-risk, easy way to do this experiment. And if they suck, we're just going to stop. We're not locked in with them. We don't have to go buy the 13th car with them. We can just go start buying our own cars. We're just done with you. So he has every incentive not to rip us off on the residuals. We'll just stop using them. I do feel it's been vetted. I'm nowhere as smart as you with cars, but I think we'll be okay. So that's my pitch here.
That was good.
Any further discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. Move forward with this lease.
I'll second it.
It's a motion and a second.
To recommend.
To recommend.
To recommend to the Common Council.
To recommend to the Common Council, which will be us in the next minute.
Yes, sir.
All those in favor? Well, let's do a roll
It's
call.
money.
There's no dollar value yet, but yeah. Let's do a roll
You actually
call.
don't need to do a roll call on money at committee. It's only at the
Oh,
council
yeah,
level
yeah.
that we have.
Someone conned me into that earlier. Okay, I won't fall for it again. Nonetheless, just because it's fun, let's do a roll call vote.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Garrow.
No.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk.
No.
Alderman Bushy.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
No.
Mayor Norben. To break the tie.
Aye. Okay. We will reconvene as the Common Council, and well, we will not reconvene as a Common Council because I've been politely reminded we did not have a committee meeting tonight. We have other public works matters to take up. So the next it's the next two, isn't it? Resolution 3951, resolution authorizing an application submittal for Wisconsin Department of Transportation 2022 Surface Transportation Program, funding for road replacement along Mequon Road, Lakeshore Drive, and Zedler Lane. There's no recommendation from the committee, but really brief staff report.
Yes, staff only brought this forward to acknowledge that the application would require the consideration of bicycle accommodations. So normally we would have a policy discussion ahead of programming it for a road program about bicycle accommodations, but with the June 1st deadline, we didn't have time to do so. So we wanted to at least bring the grant with the acknowledgement that the application will require consideration of bicycle accommodations, and that would be vetted in the design process.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
All right. We'll vote on that again in a minute. The final one in committee of the whole here is resolution 3952, resolution awarding the 2022 County Line Road box culvert replacement contract in the amount not to exceed of $300,000.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Gotta call the roll.
That's committee,
That's
so
for-
not yet.
Right, committee still.
Yeah, didn't fall for it. We are now going to reconvene as the Common Council and vote on those same three things again. So we'll take up resolution 3952 again for the master equity lease agreement for Enterprise.
So just as a point of order, the vote on that one was 4 ayes and 5 noes because by our code, District 8 is a deemed no. So it presumably, if the vote is the same, then the motion will fail. So if there's some thought that we want to vet this some more, I would suggest that the recommendation would be to table and send back to committee. Just throwing that out there.
Wasn't it 5 yeas, 4 noes? Including the district vacancy?
I have no's as
Just 5-4.
Mayor Garrell, Strelchek, Mayor, and District 8.
I have, 5 ayes and
Yeah.
4
4
noes,
noes.
so
The mayor
then
broke the
council
tie.
would be 4-4.
It was 4-4 counting the vacancy as a no.
Did you vote yes?
No, you voted no.
Who do you have as your vote, Madam Clerk?
I have Alderman Strelchuk, no. Alderman Bushy, aye. Alderman Meyer, no. Alderman Hancher, aye. Alderman Garrell, no. Alderman Parrish, aye. Alderman Schneider, aye. The vacancy is no, and Mayor Nurbin is aye.
You pay closer attention than I, so I'll trust those are correct.
All right, is there a motion?
It will, it'll go through. if
It'll
it
go
goes the
through
same
if
way.
no one changes.
All right. Where are we now?
Looking
Need
for
a
a motion on 3950.
Want to table it?
Move to approve 3950.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please call the roll again.
Alderman Garrell?
No.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Schneider?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk?
No.
Alderman Bushy?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer?
No.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
So that's 4-4.
Aye. Gotta do something different than what we're doing. If we don't like it, we'll back out of it. Resolution 3951. For the STP funding. Looking for a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes. Resolution 3952, the box culvert for $300,000. Is there a motion?
So moved. Approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Schneider?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Aye.
Alderman Bushy?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Garrell?
Aye.
All right. Resolution 3953, resolution authorizing a boundary amendment to the City of Mequon Sanitary Sewer Service Area. This was recommended earlier by the Sewer Utility District Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
There's a no. Okay, there's one no.
You gotta ask no.
I did. I asked.
I know,
You beat me to it.
just as course of action.
Resolution 3954, resolution approving the award for a contract for rehabilitation of 96 sanitary sewer laterals in the Riverdale Park and Riverland Drive lift station areas, in amount not to exceed $298,001. This was recommended earlier by the Sewer Utility
Move
District
approval.
Commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Schneider?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Aye.
Alderman Bushy?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Garrell?
Aye.
And Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
That passes. Resolution 3955, the resolution to award the contract to inspect those same 96 laterals in the amount of not to exceed of $63,294. This was recommended earlier by the Sewer District.
Second.
Motion and a second. No discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, well, please call the roll for that.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Aye.
Alderman Bushy?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Garrell?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
That passes. Resolution 3956, resolution authorizing change to the sanitary sewer manhole rehabilitation contract to National Power Rotting for the amount of $587. This was recommended earlier this evening as well by the Sewer Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Do it.
Aye.
Roll call. It is money. It's only 587, but
But don't we have a,
statute just says anything monetary.
Okay, so let's go. We'll it'll cost us more in time.
Alderman Bushy?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer? Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman
Aye.
Garrell? Alderman Parrish? Alderman Schneider?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak?
Aye.
And that motion passes. There's no specified unfinished business. And the last item on the agenda is appointments, mayoral appointments for Park and Open Space, Library Board, Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, Festivals Committee, and Southern Ozaki Fire and EMS Directors.
Move to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Is there a motion to adjourn, Alderman Guerrero?
Oh, move to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Any second.